Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Georgetown Planning Board meeting of April 9th, 2014. Tonight we have Matilda Evangelista, Mr. Rob Hoover, myself, I'm Harry Locatilia, and Wendy Beaumont is our administrative assistant. Howard Snyder is our town planner. Without any further ado, time being 7:05, call the meeting to order. First on the agenda are the minutes of March 26th. Does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended of March 26, 2014.
And Tilly made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Rob seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 3-0. Let the record show that Mr. Bob Watts arrives at 7:06.
Go there.
And we'll give Bob a minute to take a seat, take a breath. While we do that, if there are no objections, we can have Howard tell us a little bit about the correspondence.
You received 4 items in the packet. One was from a resident concerning the Turning Leaf definitive subdivision. I'm providing that to the board now. The public hearing is at the next meeting of the board on the 23rd. Bring it up with discussion then. 2 items from Larry Graham, technical review regarding Turning Leaf. Again, you can bring that up at the 23rd. And there is a response letter provided from Bill Holt, the engineer for Jefferson Court, definitive subdivision special permit. The board can address that at tonight's public hearing.
Great, thank you. We have some vouchers.
2 vouchers, one for general office supplies and the second from the Daily News regarding legal ads for the zoning bylaws and amendments that the planning board is undertaking.
Great, and if someone would be so kind, I will accept the motion.
I'll make a motion to sign the vouchers for,
The total amount is $683.75.
$683.75. WB Basin for $23.99, and the North of Boston Media for $659.76.
And motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rob. Any discussion?
Good.
Rob, good? Tilly, good?
Yep, good.
All in favor of approving the vouchers, $683.75? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. And good. Great. Let the record show that Tim Howard arrives at, we'll call it 7:10. And with that beginning, do we want to take up the issue of Harmony Lane as old business?
Yep. Provided in the packet is documentation regarding the acceptance of the street layout of Harmony Lane for the planning board to consider and make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen for acceptance by the town at town meeting. We've received, in general, a letter from BSC Group, which was the site inspecting engineer, regarding the as-built and the street acceptance plans. We find both of those plans are acceptable. And other parts of this memo outline the release of surety that the board did a number of meetings ago. At the end, he said, all work has been performed in general conformance with the approved plans to normal construction tolerance. Both he and Peter Durkee agreed the street is suitable for acceptance as a public way. Also included in the packet was a letter from the Georgetown Police Department and the Fire Department regarding their analysis of the lane.
My only concern that I saw, just to bring up the beginning, was the memo from the fire department where he says that during this winter, we experienced a medical aid call at one of the residences due to the snowpack was difficult for the fire apparatus to make a safe turnaround. This road's built, it's ready, certainly something to consider.
Right.
But other than that, everybody seems good with it. Highway seems
And he
good.
didn't say that they were unable to.
No, he
It
just
was just a little tough.
Yeah.
made it a little tough. Something to keep in the back of our minds when we're thinking about courts, lanes, smaller subdivisions, snow storage areas are important to have. It's a lesson to be learned. But,
Provided
Right.
in the packet were all the meeting notes. I didn't recall seeing in the meeting notes any testimony given that this was gonna remain a private way.
At this point, we now have to turn around because the selectmen have asked us to generate a report for this.
Right.
That might
Report back to the selectmen about if the planning board recommends or doesn't recommend acceptance of the layout at the town meeting.
So it essentially boils down to that. If the planning board accepts, recommends, or doesn't recommend this to the town meeting voters for acceptance.
I move to recommend it to the selectmen.
Motion by Tim to recommend to town meeting the acceptance of Harmony Lane.
Second.
Seconded by Bob. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Rob has
opposed?
to abstain.
Abstain.
One abstention. Motion carries 3 to
All that work,
0
Frank.
with one
You're
abstention.
in and out.
4?
4 to
4, excuse me, 4 to 0, one abstention. My apology. I'm expected to do this without a calculator, you know. It's not that easy. Howard, judging by that, I'm sure you don't need any instructions to send that.
No, it can be an
Some type
email
of
or an oral discussion.
format.
It might be a good idea to send Peter Durkee that fire department letter about the snow, so that his plowers won't,
Be aware of
yeah,
where to load the snow.
right.
Give him a call. Let him know. Give him a heads up. So no surprises at town meeting, anyway. Great, that's all done. At this time, we will most likely be all set to start the continuation, open the continuation of the public hearing for Jefferson Court.
Larry Graham is expected to be here at 7:15.
3 more minutes. I'm sure he'll arrive. We'll start setting up and get everything ready for him when he gets here. In the meantime, Bill can fill us in a little bit about where we are and what's transpired. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Holt, the engineer.
If I can just update first.
Sounds like a great idea.
Okay, in your packets,
If you identify yourself,
yes,
just for the, just
Attorney
for one.
Mitchell Croner of Groveland, attorney for the applicant.
Can
And
I
we had,
just- Can I interrupt you one
Yes,
second?
sure.
When was this continued from?
March
Howard?
12th.
March 12th? Thank you. Thank you very much. My apologies.
I had forwarded to Howard a few documents that I believe he had sent to you as part of the packet. One being a letter from Jonathan Holt, who was the former owner of 78 North Street. I believe at the last meeting, there was some issue about a stream or some water flow on the northwesterly boundary of the property, and according to Mr. Holt, there was never any type of water there, and he also states he had never received any complaints from the abutters on the northwesterly side, which would be the Boardman Street side. So I'm just furnishing that as rebuttal to what was said at the last meeting. I've also provided you a copy of an easement agreement and a copy of a deed. The property at 76 North Street has been sold, and there was an easement reserved that Bill can get into a little. It was for the corner of the property for the access to one of the houses. So it would be the, I guess, the northwesterly corner of 76,
Do we
actually.
need to zoom in on the center of that one? Oh, okay.
So that's been taken care of. So the new owner has taken subject to that easement, and there was a plan recorded on that. Yeah, that corner.
On the same page.
Thirdly, I provided a draft, or, for your review, of a type of maintenance agreement for the two houses, and following up on what you just discussed on Harmony Lane, we will not be coming back at any point seeking town approval for this court. It specifically will state in that agreement, in fact, I think I stated it a couple of times, that it'll remain a private way, and each owner obviously will sign off on that and be aware that it's their responsibility and not the town's for maintenance, plowing, et cetera, of Jefferson Court. So hopefully that issue is done.
Always nice to have that in the record again.
Yes, that will not come back, that I can assure you.
While you're
Yes.
discussing the, what's it referred to, a maintenance agreement?
Yes.
And tell me a little bit about this, Mitch. This is something that will be attached
This
and
will be
run with the
recorded.
land
Yeah, it'll
for
be recorded.
the two, what is it, 35 or 32?
Well, I
or
think
33?
I think ultimately it'll be one Jefferson Court and two Jefferson Court. And
Okay.
the agreement will be recorded at the Registry of Deeds with each deed, so that there'll be no question. And, Dina is the real estate agent, and she's gonna make sure that these are attached to the purchase and sale and listed in any, public, MLS listing, that there's no question. So any owner, there should be no, we're gonna do our very best
Right.
to assure that there'll be no confusion on this, that these people know that it's private in perpetuity.
What about subsequent transfers?
It'll be
of property?
recorded, it'll be referenced in each subsequent deed. So
Okay,
once it's
so-
recorded and established, it becomes part of the deed.
So it runs with the land?
Runs with the land, correct, Harry?
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct, Mitch, to Groveland, Essex County? The first paragraph.
That's probably a typo. I'm glad you looked at that.
Well, she's looking at the recorded easement.
Oh, the recorded, okay. The recorded easement, I didn't prepare that. That can be corrected, I did not prepare that easement.
Did you prepare the maintenance agreement?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Could you, I'm looking at what must be, what I'm assuming is a typo. On the second page,
Okay,
what would it be, 2B?
yeah,
As between Town of Georgetown and the lot owners?
yeah,
Lot owners, it's the last sentence there. The Town of Georgetown shall have no responsibility for the maintenance of the court.
That's true.
And the Town of Georgetown
Shall have no-
shall have
no,
responsibility
well,
for snow
okay,
removal.
no.
Okay, quick
That-
typo.
That's why it's
Okay.
good to have another set of eyes, thank you.
Great. That was all I saw.
Yep.
Did anybody else see anything that raises any flags or?
Nope.
Moving on, great.
And I'll just note that this is part of the testimony in the application, so written into the decision will be the board has accepted this easement. That's just a requirement. When it comes to these maintenance agreements and the bonds.
Great. Thank you, Howard.
And the other document you should have received was a letter from the water department.
Is that in our supplemental?
No, it's not. I received those after the
Oh, okay.
packet was
I'm
provided, but
sorry.
I had forwarded
Okay.
them by email.
Okay.
Both from the water department and what was the
The
other-
fire department?
The fire department
Okay, yes,
comments as
that's,
well.
all right, I see they were just dated yesterday, correct.
Would the board like to hear a summary of those, or?
I read the one from the water department.
Okay. I'm afraid I've been a little lax in my email these days. I'm sorry.
You want to read a copy?
I'd love to hear a summary of it.
Just read them.
Sure.
Just
read it.
Yeah,
Sure,
and
or
that-
read them
that
into the
way
record.
they'll-
That- yes,
in the record.
that's
they'll-
most
Okay.
appropriate.
You want both read, or?
They're both brief.
All right, Fire Department's Al Beardsley, Fire Chief. Howard, I have reviewed the plan for Jefferson Court revision dated March 25th, 2014. From the Fire Department's perspective, the entry and width appear adequate for fire apparatus to approach and negotiate. So that's Fire Department. The one signed by the Water Department is from Louis Mamelet, General Manager. I'm writing on behalf of the Georgetown Water Department to provide my feedback on the revised definitive plan for Jefferson Court. The feedback applies to, he references drawings, standard conditions, comply with GWD rules and regulations. Special condition, the contractor applicant shall abandon the existing water service which previously served 78 North Street by closing the corporation stop on the water main in North Street. All excavation work in North Street shall comply with Mass DOT standards. Reference to HDPE service tubing as CTC is incorrect. HDPE service shall be CTS, which stands for copper tubing size. And if you have any questions, please contact our office. So,
Thank you, Mitch.
I think you've got this.
Are these spare copies?
Yes. And the last thing I wanted to submit, I've referenced this before, but I just wanted it to be in the record that the building inspector has stated this is a non-conforming lot for a two-family house. Just so for the record, we're not increasing the number of families or anything. That the house that was torn down at 78 was a two-family house, and the applicant does have the right, as of right, to construct some type of two-family or two condo units, something like that. Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll just construct what we are looking to construct. And I guess, Bill, I guess it's yours now.
We revised the plans according to the first technical review by Larry Graham, and we submitted plans to Larry as well as a response letter that itemized each response. We provided a copy of our letter to the planning department, and I believe that was forwarded to all of you to review as well. In addition, I sat down with Larry a little over a week ago to discuss the plans and the revisions, to go over them item by item with Larry to make sure that he was all set with.
Bill, may I cut you off for just a moment?
Larry, you can
Larry,
take a seat in
would you
the
mind
front.
joining us?
The very
Please?
Larry
Thank
of
you.
Richmond Street.
Thank you, Bill.
Bill, are you reading your response to the first or the
I'm
second?
not gonna, I was kind of try to avoid reading it, but I can if you want me to.
No, just, you're referring your
Referring to the
discussion
response to the,
Your response.
to review, yes, to the first review, which I say have itemized each of Larry's comments and then our response to each of them as well. And I went through those with Larry, say a week ago, to make sure that we addressed all his concerns. And I see that by his response, the second report, for D2, that when I left the meeting, he was satisfied that we had completed all the revisions, and I see from his response that indeed he is indicating that we have addressed all concerns. So, I mean, I
Is
don't
that
want
in-
to go through each one, or if you want to
To the
Have-
big packet.
It's in the packet.
Oh, it's in the packet itself?
If you have any particular questions on any particular item, we can try to clarify anything that you have questions on, but as we stated in the last meeting.
Just sorry, Bill, just for record, the back and forth that's happened is you responded to his first, and Larry has issued a second review report, which I forwarded to the board electronically. I have available here, but it's not provided in the packet, because that was dated April 7th.
Okay.
So,
And I have a
and
copy of
they
that.
do have a copy of your response letter to the first technical review report.
Well,
But just for my own understanding, so
Yeah.
the second response, we don't have yet, it was just emailed, is that right?
The second letter from the technical review agent was forwarded electronically,
And that was the first letter forwarded?
Tuesday
So if you
morning.
want Tuesday,
Yeah,
okay.
it was received by the office Friday, Monday evening.
Okay, all right.
we're lucky here, because it sounds like we've just got some,
There is some
a
overlap.
little bit of a timing issue, a little latency. But Larry, is it my understanding that you have reviewed the second time here?
Yes, I have.
Okay, okay, so we're fortunate that you're here tonight, and that keeps us from, maybe the board doesn't have to actually read this, maybe we can just ask Larry if he'd be kind enough to, well, let's put it this way. Maybe you won't agree with me. Larry, what should we be looking at? What has not been resolved to your satisfaction?
I think most of the issues that we've been reviewing through the couple of reviews that we've done have been answered to our satisfaction. However, there remain a few things which I think it would be advantageous for the board to go over this evening
Okay.
that are more or less board decisions, some clarification and some assurance to the board of how things would be handled legally in restrictive covenants. And, you know, that's kind of a summary of what's left over here. So if you'd like, I'll hit those highlights.
I'd love for you to
Last
hit them
report. Okay.
in a row, right down the line.
If you don't have this report, but can look at the screen, is that the best way to do it? This
Is that it?
evening?
Yeah, that's it.
That's it?
Okay.
Okay, great, great, so it's in front of all of us, great.
The first item's on the bottom of page 2, under B1. Sheet 1, it's an easement note at the upper left-hand corner of the sheet. And essentially, Bill, could you read your note to the board that we're referring to?
Where are you, Larry?
I am on
B what?
B1A.
A.
B1A. Yeah.
Left-hand corner of the sheet references easements?
This is for the easements?
Oh,
Yeah,
the
sheet,
one we-
sheet 1, the easement.
Oh, that you
That's
just
not,
got.
yeah, that's not,
The
that's.
note that we
old.
revised, it says easement note, it says all proposed easements shall be retained by the town of Georgetown and/or the owners of lots 33 and 33A.
So my question on that was whether or not the town wants to be a recipient of the easement. Or do you want to just leave it with the owner, since this is a private road, everything about this is private once you approve this definitive plan?
Just for your edification, we just discussed an easement and,
Maintenance agreement.
a maintenance agreement. We also discussed an easement that's for, well, maybe you could point it out there, Howard, it's that little area there. Which one, now that's gonna be, clarify for me,
That's really the only easement there is, so.
that's basically it?
Yeah.
The others are,
The rest of the drainage is actually inside of the right of way, so.
the layout of the right away?
So my question is, does the town want to have an easement over that on a private? Because it obligates you to do something, I think, if
Yeah.
you do.
Well, I presume that the drainage easement ran to the benefit of 33A and 33. And it was on 32. The land is on 32, but it runs to the benefit of 33A and 33. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So where's the town involved in that?
No. Yeah, you just usually you have,
We're out of it,
usually
right?
you request the easements be given to the town. That's on your regulations.
If it were to be,
This is a private way, so
Right.
it makes more sense just to leave it with the two.
if it were to be an accepted town road?
Yes.
Gotcha.
So the solution is revise the note so it doesn't implicate the town.
Aha.
Okay.
So fix that note, right?
Do you have a recommendation? Do you have a feeling one way or the other?
Yeah, I think it should remain private between the owners, and the town should not be involved.
But we would have to say that it's registered, right? On
The plan will
deeds.
be recorded.
Well, that's
Easement.
that's what is recorded.
Yeah.
That's what's recorded.
The next one is B1C on the next page. Notes appropriately revised unless the planning board prefers to have the court provide access to lot 32. If you look at the plan, the plan is the court, it's for 2 lots. And they initially had the lot where the pointer is, where the hand is, with access to Jefferson Court. They've taken that access away, and the note has been revised such that it says the court is only for the access to the 2 lots in the rear. So If the board's fine with that, then the plan and the notes are acceptable. If you don't want that other lot to have
No.
access.
Any
Okay.
contention with that? I think that was the feelings of the board to have, access be off of North Street for.
That way those two homes in the back are
For lot
responsible
32.
For lot 32.
for the
Thank you.
plowing, maintenance and everything else. Why involve them into,
And Larry, excuse me, I just mentioned before you came in, that has been sold. 76 North Street has been sold. So,
Without access to the road?
no,
Yep,
nothing.
okay.
Just subject to the easement in the northwesterly
Okay,
corner.
okay.
You're okay with that?
I am.
Yep.
The next one is D, on the next following note, the notes was been appropriately revised. The planning board may want to condition any approval action on receipt of the recorded restrictive covenants. I think that's a foregone conclusion that you're gonna see those
Somebody can
covenants.
put in the decision,
Yep.
wording for the decision?
Correct. The next one is E, and, see the recorded documents addressing a comment. Okay, that, all I'm saying there is that you may want to see, I think what Mitch has given you tonight, perhaps, you want to see the recorded documents before you release lots. He's given you the draft of it. Before you release either the two lots, you want to see these things in a recorded form.
So essentially before, in the decision, prior to lot release,
Correct.
would be receipt of recordation verification.
As far as the waiver requests go, they have revised the plans and the waiver request list on the first sheet to our satisfaction. And I would recommend that in your decision, you specifically consider granting the waivers that they've requested.
Help
The
me.
upper right-hand corner of that sheet.
Okay, so I'm looking at the latest, I believe the latest set of plans, and I'm trying to find a date here.
Should be 325 revision. And I'm not sure that the front sheet has that
Where
date on it.
are you
although
seeing that?
May not be on the front sheet.
It's not on the front sheet, but all the other sheets have it. I couldn't find it on the front sheet either.
And
Look
it was-
underneath, the waivers requested are underneath the the registry block.
Right, but I'm hoping that this is the right one. A lot of these rolls.
7.
Yes.
Seven of them.
Title block layout, street name in pencil, ends with max graded entrance at 1.25%. Okay. Looks to be the same one. Great, and good that that's verified, and I hope after you go through, all your concerns and comments that, we can hear from the audience naturally, and we'll
We
get
can
back to
circle back
voting
to
these.
those if you want.
Yep,
Yeah.
we'll get, well, I would hope we're gonna have to.
Next comment that I think we should perhaps discuss.
drainage,
Is-
I think would be one, Larry.
Yeah, it's on sheet 4, item 4. Item 4F. There it is. This involves the grading of the lot to the southwest, which is lot, what, Bill? 33. And what the applicant's engineer has done is he's really fine-tuned the grading of that lot such that the overflow from their small detention basin, infiltration basin behind the house will outlet up toward the Y of Jefferson Court. And I put that in quotes in my comment, fine tuning, because it has to be done with a rake by hand. I mean, and it can be done, and it will function. My concern is, once the lot is sold, that path, if you will, that drainage path remains the way that it will be built according to the plan and the subdivision inspector's inspection of it after the lot is sold. So I believe that somehow we need to get that fine-tuned grading in the restrictive covenants, so that it functions the way that you're approving it.
How would that be enforced?
My suggestion would be that the covenant I gave you, the agreement, is just for Jefferson Court, period. Just for maintenance, so that the
Yep.
two lot owners understand it's private in perpetuity and what their responsibilities are. I would suggest I can put right in the deed for that lot, or even for both lots, that, you know, they're taking subject to all terms of the planning board decision. And if you want, I can specifically put language in the deed that they have, or at least that lot owner, 33, has the responsibility to maintain that easement. And if for some reason they don't, the drainage, for some reason they don't, I believe that, you know, and a butter would have standing to come back before this board if that weren't being adhered to.
It's actually not in an easement.
Not an easement, but just a
We don't
response.
wanna see it again.
Wouldn't it be easy to just design this the right way?
Well, I think it is,
Is there any other way to do it?
well,
I'm a little bit concerned, Larry.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned because I was looking at it, and you have micro grading there.
Mhm.
And you have micro grading all throughout this whole parcel. And my concern is, it sounds like the calculations are really close. They're just working with the detention basins. And I'm seeing pavement up to Jefferson Court, but what's killing me is, after this is all done, this is a private road. And 6 months after these two houses are sold and town's all sold off, signed off on it, someone's gonna pave between the end of that Y and that garage, and the end of that Y and that garage, because people aren't gonna leave that gravel.
No, it is paved. We've frozen paved pave on the driveways. We've got a design for paved driveways, the whole way.
that's correct.
It's, our calculations are based on
Those calcs are
pavement,
working in conjunction with the,
paved driveways.
everything works.
Yeah.
Actually, it
And-
works, I believe, a little better than it should.
And there's a lot of room in the calculations, in the theoretical calculations of this working, because
Okay.
the soils are so pervious.
Okay.
And you know, they're fortunate here that they have those soils, because there is no overflow from these things off the property. But one of the things that they can't do is the site to the south of Lot 33.
Right.
They couldn't build that up, because the more they build it up, the more they're going to keep the water from moving south to north out of their abutters property. So if they built it up, they can make it flow better on their property, but they're not doing that, because there's actually an overflow between that little infiltration, well, basically just to the right or the south of the house on Lot 33. It's essentially the low point where water, if it ever ponded that high on the property to the south, would take the same course into their property.
I think I'm having trouble understanding it, because I don't see the top,
not so
I don't
much-
see topography on that, on
It's
that
not much,
lot.
it's not so much our water, it's the water on the abutters property that would build up and come to our property. And if we build our property up, then it won't go through our property like it does now, if it get that high.
Just
Now,
a-
our calculations show it never gets that high, but if it did in a storm that was bigger than a 100-year storm, it would flow this way, to the north,
To the north.
Correct.
from the south
South
to
to
the north.
north.
So it's actually their water coming onto our property, and we're trying to keep it so that it will come onto our property, is what we're trying to do.
And this is all theoretical, you know, we're not talking about major flooding here, I don't think.
Right.
That's
But
where
this
you-
is what we do. I mean, this is the way we approach this stuff.
Well, that's where you said you had a where, wasn't it? You had built up like something here to prevent the water from leaving your property, not
Right,
from,
that's our little pond, that's gonna collect the water and infiltrate the,
Shallow detention.
cause we had a lot of complaints from that lot abutting there.
Mhm.
Of, concerns, and when that's gone, that little, where you called it,
right now, as it stands, there's about 25% of the property, of the subject property, would flow towards our neighbor. As it stands right now, we're actually gonna keep it from going that way. And then, but we're not gonna build it up to the point where it won't go to the north. That's where,
Better.
we're trying to keep the water on our own site and maintain our own water
Yeah.
more than the pre-development was. And we're not increasing the height on our lot, so it would restrict the flow. If it was to come off that property onto our property, it would still go through our property. On a larger storm that's bigger than the storms we calculate for. We're going to
Do you
the
think
100-year storm.
vegetation would be a better idea, or is there any other idea than grading?
Well,
To-
I think
because of the
maybe,
maintenance.
maybe this might help to clarify that the backyard of lot 33, behind the house and the proposed septic, if you will, right in that area with the hand, is graded so it goes to that infiltration basin 2-1, right there. When that basin, if it fills up from a storm, it will overflow to the north, where the hand's falling, right down toward the finger of the turnaround.
Which is lower than the,
That's what happens to the on-site water. The off-site water to the south, just above where it says now or formerly Di Giovanni, that elevation along the property line has not been changed. That's where Bill's talking about the overflow of any ponding to the south would break into their property and follow that same course down to that Y. I don't know if you want to add to that.
that's essentially exactly what I was
So,
trying to say.
possibly another way of saying this is that this design accommodates all the water on-site, it's not going off-site, and it's also designed to accommodate any flow coming from an abutter onto the property.
To not change that,
That
the
natural
ability of that to
system.
happen.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
As long as they keep upgrading the area, right?
As long as they don't fill these things in, and, you know, I don't foresee, unless everybody throws their grass clippings in the, in these channels, I mean, in normal upkeep of someone's yard, I don't foresee any issues with this, again, because you've got such good soils beneath you here.
Was your original question to the board, or that it's such a shallow, how do you maintain this over a long period of time? Was that the original?
My
just
original
what you were talking
concern is that it is fine-tuned graded, and what can we do? And Mitch offered something, but what can we do to ensure that that doesn't, that grading doesn't get changed,
It's a great question.
so.
Great. Just on that, so I got that question, that's clear for me. I'm assuming that if this abutter moves its water over here, these are all set to take it. and
Yes,
whatnot.
yeah, yep.
Well, would you explain that to me again, one more time? Or?
I was just assuming, knowing Larry, that he had already done it, but I just needed to hear for myself that, that any water from off-site to the abutter, that they've accounted for it, that still will come onto their property. The proposed system will take it. It's sized and whatnot appropriately for that. So the question is, you've got a very subtle grade, and what do you do to make sure that that subtle grade stays in place so that an owner doesn't buy it, they see this water moving over time and they start to build a little dam of their own
Right.
and kind of thing. What's the best mechanism for that?
I would think you could put something in your decision that the existing flow from the Di Giovanni parcel, and that way they have some recourse to come in if, I mean, we're gonna do our very best to convince, to instruct the owner of that house what the rules are. But I think if you put it in your decision, then an abutter has some recourse if they did try to dam it or do something inappropriate. They have some recourse to come back to this board, which I think is what you're looking for.
Can it get added to the drawings also?
Let's get that straight. We're not looking to
Oh, I know you don't want to.
have anybody come back
Right,
to this board.
and we're gonna do our very best
Right.
to make it a permanent deed.
It's my intent that we
Right.
do it the right way, so
Right,
that
right. I'm just saying,
it from happening.
you're talking about enforcement.
What is the water table there, Rob?
It's about 75 to 85 inches. It's quite deep.
Good.
Yeah,
It's
6,
good.
7 feet,
Below the pits?
below surface ground,
Below the pits where they were taken?
below ground surface of the pits where they dug. Yep.
Well, typically, I'm thinking that in the real world, if there's a problem and somebody's looking to find out, there's a drainage problem going on, the first thing they do is they go to the plans, to the recorded plans, and I would think that having a note on the plan to that effect would also do it, and they could
That's fine,
cross-reference each other.
Sure.
that's fine.
Would that work? Would that work?
What would a note like
Yeah.
that sound like?
Is that
I-
good enough?
Give me some language so I can envision it, please.
I don't know what that language, this is my hangup with this particular
Mine
deal
too.
right here. I don't
Mine
know
too. I have to
exactly
vote for
the
a
best
special
way to
permit
do it,
tonight.
so I'm throwing it out there. Let's try to find a way tonight to.
And I'm not getting a warm and fuzzy.
The language would be something that this isn't the exact language, but the idea, the concept is that what is on these drawings, and you could spell it out, you know, this property line and these spot grade contours, those grades have to be maintained as is in perpetuity. or something
And if you
like
put it in the restrictive covenants recorded in the deed, then maybe that's the best you can do.
Well, and you should add so as not to adversely impact the existing flow of water from neighboring
that.
properties.
And to keep it all as originally designed.
Correct.
Yeah.
The proposed flow of
Yeah.
water.
But you have to put a why, what are you trying to
I
accomplish?
agree, Tim.
Clearly,
So
we need to
Mitch
do an
can write
as-built
that up.
plan at the end of this project before
Yeah.
it's signed off on. We could highlight the location of those grading with shading, and then put an arrow pointing to it and actually spell out that will be that grading needs to be maintained. And it's, you can reference it in the covenant if you'd like.
Well, the neighbor had complained that she said that, your property was 4 feet higher than hers. Would that
That's-
have a bearing on what she would, confirming what she had stated here, that she was concerned about that?
She may be
With the
saying.
water table being, you said 78 is.
Yeah, 6 to 7
Not-
feet below. I think maybe what has been said then is that the proposed grade around the house there is 88. That's about 3 feet higher than the abutting property line. Finished first floor is about 4 feet higher, so maybe that's what the reference was. But that grading all comes to this infiltration basin 2-1 we've been talking about, and that, if you will, stops the water from flowing southerly. And then it overflows along this path that we're also discussing. If it does overflow, it doesn't flow south, it flows to the northeast.
Do they have roof runoff infiltration?
Yeah, they have,
The gray squares
yeah,
that you see here.
Any resolution, any motions, discussion?
I'm sorry I don't have a strong recommendation for you, but
I completely understand
I
that.
apologize.
Yep.
Just haven't been able to.
Some things are,
Some-
We can add a note to the
Up.
plan, as well as highlighting the swale that we're proposing, the proposed grading, so that it's very clearly highlighted and noted on the plan that it'll be maintained, and make reference to the covenant that it needs to be maintained by the owner of lot 33. And it can't be changed, those grades have to remain the same. You can definitely add that note, and, you know, I can review it prior to signing on plans.
You
should we
could,
get to that
you could
point.
approve it contingent upon that note being accepted by the
Yeah.
board.
one last question about topography proposed. Do you have approved septic plans?
We have approved septic plan for, obviously, 76 has been sold. We have an approved septic plan for lot 33.
Lot
just as you see
33?
it. Yep, it's just
Okay.
as you see it.
And what's the finished grade?
It's 88, 87, 87 and a half over the top of the system.
Maybe discussion, but.
Current grade is 87.
87
spot
one,
grade's there.
yeah, 87
So
one.
it's like,
88,
it's about a
87.
foot higher than grade now.
So it's about 88?
It's 87 and a half. I see proposed grade 87 and a half on there.
Here's existing 87 right here. Here's proposed 88.
And
Okay, so
right
that,
behind us
that
is
whole
a-
area is the proposed grade for the septic?
Yeah, 87.
When you're
87
cleaning
and a
up your septic, when you're fine grading your septic?
And that's
install?
graded to flow toward that little.
Okay, I get that, okay. I just, sometimes, historically, I've seen things get approved from this board, and then subsequent to that,
We're gonna be using this.
for whatever
plan.
reason,
Septic.
a septic system gets installed, and all of a sudden, things are popping out of the ground.
You know,
A little-
maybe,
little higher.
to push the can down the road a little further. Maybe you approve this subject to an as-built plan showing that it's been constructed as proposed, and leave yourself a reservation that at that time you feel it's necessary, then that particular course of path of drainage could be protected by another easement. You can do an easement later. Maybe that's, leaves you.
Something prior to lot release?
Yeah. Prior to certificate of occupancy sign off, but not lot release, because they would want the lot release to get their building permit to start construction. But they would, you could hold up a CO. Sign off.
Well,
Yeah, that sounds like a good thing to do.
the lot wouldn't have to be released, he'd be able to build it, he owns it.
Well,
It could come along,
you have a-
there's a requirement for the easement to be recorded and provided.
Don't you still have a lot
Be part of
release
that.
though, Form J or whatever it is
Yeah.
that the board signs before you get a building permit? I believe.
Oh, I'm thinking of a covenant, release of covenant. But there wouldn't be any covenants in this case.
No. If they show proof that the easement and agreement about Jefferson Court has been filed and recorded, then this can be another layer of it, but I believe it's well covered with both the note on the drawing as well as the covenant restriction that's gonna be recorded that the homeowner is gonna have to accept when he purchases the home. And
So it
when-
will be an additional covenant on the parcel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I can wrap my mind around it. And in the decision, it would be prior to.
Certificate of
the
occupancy.
Certificate of
Occupancy
occupancy, okay,
Occupancy permit.
okay. I'm getting comfortable.
I
I'm
still
getting it.
think there should be a reference as to why, that drainage is in there so as not to impede the current flow of water from neighboring properties.
That sounds like language in the decision describing that and pointing out that, the reasoning behind.
That makes it easy
Yeah.
for a neighbor with a problem to
Absolutely.
reference that and say,
Mhm.
see, that wasn't done, and
Right.
this is what's happening to my property because of it.
So referenced in the decision, everybody good with that? Referenced in the decision, and as well, is there?
It should be recorded
I like what
somehow.
Larry and what Rob was saying, on the plans, because the plans are the first thing they call.
Put it on both, I mean, there's no reason not to.
Yeah, to clarify, I'm not looking to have any butter come back before you, but in the unlikely event it's necessary, like Tim said, if it's in your decision, if it's on the plan, and if it's a recorded covenant, then they have some recourse.
Right, I'm gonna say, don't come to this book, call Mitch Croner.
Well, we're gonna hope we sell it to good people, so.
Well, as long as they know what they're buying, there won't be a problem.
We'll make that perfect.
Informed people.
And they will with
Correct.
the deed and the.
And the most
Informed.
important thing is the next turnover and the next
Correct,
turnover.
correct.
I'm thinking 30 years down the road.
As long as it's in the recordation.
Right.
And I'm sure the neighbors that live there now,
And
if
that's,
there's a problem, they're gonna remember this.
Oh,
And
sure,
they're
sure.
gonna know, they'll know where to go.
Right.
Yeah.
to
Then, I
resolve
mean,
this.
then
and
you
I
don't,
like the plan, because plans are where
Right.
your deeds are referenced. So I like that. So anybody pulling a deed.
and not to pick on Harmony Lane, you wouldn't have to go back in your minutes to see what was said. It'll be all
I like
there.
that.
You
That
know,
sounds
it
neat.
wouldn't be a bad idea is to put, and I don't know how you do it, but an elevation, like an elevation stake there, so that it would be easy for someone to come in and shoot the grade there and see that it wasn't messed with. But I don't know if there's any such thing, it just sounds like a good idea if there was.
Wouldn't,
I don't know if you reference a mark on the foundation, well, I guess they could come off
You-
the foundation.
Well, I think
wouldn't a highway benchmark do that?
if you're getting to
Like
that,
the elevation?
if you're getting to that point, I think you're gonna have a surveyor or an engineer involved.
That's expensive.
That's gonna-
Make it as
Well,
inexpensive
if
as
you have an
possible.
elevation stake there, you still gotta
Yeah,
do
that's
it.
true. Either way, you still gotta.
Right, but at least he's not pulling it from, you know, central square, from the middle of the square.
The real, easy way to look at it is that water drains from the southerly property line toward the court. And if you take a hose out there and turn it on and it's draining, you've got it. You know,
Second day of the.
and because you're only talking about an inch and a half every 10 or 20 feet, so, you know, it's,
Well, it sounds like we've got that
The
then.
pitch of a septic pipe.
exactly. The next, comment, I don't think we need to discuss it much, but it's 4H, and that is that, they put some, notes on sheet 6 with respect to how the infiltration trenches and basins will be used during constructions as sediment basins, and that's really gonna be up to your subdivision inspector to see that that happens during the construction. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. The next one is
Larry, is
5A.
that something you'd recommend put in the decision?
No, I don't
A
think
note
so.
of that,
It's
or-
on the plans. It's on the plans. The next one is 5A, and I was wondering if the board had any feedback from the water department. According to Bill, in the last meeting we had, the plans were revised according to the water department.
We got a letter.
You did? Okay, good. Okay.
Something about the pipe has to
They
be
wanted to
copper
use
tube
copper instead
size.
of HDPE.
Okay.
Which is a switch, I thought they
No,
were.
they want the HDPE, but it has the abbreviation CTS, and one of my, on sheet 5, I actually abbreviated CTC, it's a typo, it should be CTS. It's just one letter, just needs to be changed on the plans. Exactly what it's 1 inch HDPE CTS, which is copper tubing size, what they call it, basically, it's just
But it's still gonna be a plastic one.
plastic pipe, exactly.
Yeah, I thought they were.
But
pretty
but
much
my
done away
abbreviation
with
from
it.
CTS was abbreviated CTC with a typo on that sheet. On sheet 6, it's actually correct, but on sheet 5, it's typed wrong. But I'll correct that prior to the, plans being submitted.
The next item is 6D, and that was just a matter of whether or not the board was going to require any street trees on the subdivision.
How does the board feel about that? I mean, this is a private development, private roadway.
Are you under D, comments, other?
No, I'm on 6D.
6?
B, 6D.
D.
6D is in dog.
D, the roadway cross-section detail?
Right, top. Right, look, too far.
Oh, right, there you go. Right there.
We just put a note on it, standard note on tree trees. Now, there's quite a few trees out there that, if you see the plan on sheet 4 and 5, RET, which is the abbreviation, we're retaining those trees, there's several on the north side of the road. It's a big hedge, or big arborvitae, or not arborvitae, what is that, a cedar type tree. It's, we're retaining those, quite a few on the southerly side of the road we're retaining.
Well, that one's gonna be gone, and that one's gonna be gone.
No, we keep that big one there, Bill.
Your grade's
That
so
one right there,
close to
right,
it.
but the 4 above it,
Well,
there's
no,
5 in there.
I don't think that one's gonna make it, it's too close to the grading.
Okay.
So you got 3 trees here, and you got 2 trees here.
We were hoping to keep.
But if this isn't gonna be a town street, it's a court.
But, I guess it's up to the board to decide whether they want extra trees put in.
What does the bylaw say about 14 trees?
Well, it's, what we're basically looking at here is the trees that would be required, correct me if I'm wrong, the trees that would be required if we had a 24-foot wide subdivision roadway
Was it like
with
one
a
every
curb
40
and,
feet?
the grass strip and the sidewalk.
Is it one every 40 feet, Howard?
Yeah.
So,
I-
it's just slightly different.
And usually those are to the benefit of
Those-
not only the residents, but the people in the town that will be driving on it, cause it's a
Right.
town street.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a no-brainer for me personally, but I would say, yeah, trees, definitely.
To
Along
have
the
them,
court?
Yeah.
to have some of them put along the
Tree-
court?
Trees
Me
are,
too.
they're gonna be here a lot longer than any of us, longer than those houses if they're done right. They are a big part of the future, and, they're short money to put in.
Well, last time I brought up, I think that I read it in the subdivision, the existing trees could be, have a well in them to protect them. And, what do you think about that?
It depends, Tilly, you know, it's, if it's a tree like the pin oaks, for example, the oaks where they have tap roots, that kind of a system will work, where the root's just going straight down. If you've got a kind of tree that has a fibrous root system, which is on the surface, the tree wells, for those to be effective, typically, you gotta have a really large tree well. The tree wells that you see that go around a trunk with
Right.
like 12 inches to spare, those are, in my opinion, a waste of money.
Very decorative, though.
They're very pretty.
They're pretty.
Yeah, the squirrels like them too. But, so,
There's some huge trees that
On-
they've salvaged them, right?
if there's some big
Really
trees out
big.
there, if there's some big trees, you wanna take the effort to save them, cause you can't replace those, I suspect.
Right, right. What are they, oaks or?
Sugar maples,
What are they?
These are sugar maples that are being retained?
yeah.
The ones on the southerly side.
Yeah,
Those
the biggest
four-
ones.
Those four up top are.
Yeah, those ones are like spruce,
Spruce, yeah.
and then these three here.
Those are actually
And the
still
site will
size.
be open.
Yeah, on the
it'll
other
be
guy's
thoroughly
property too, actually.
Graded, it's gonna have an opportunity to really sprout up and grow, it won't be crowded out. So,
Would the board like to see street trees?
I would.
Is that a motion, Julie? Where would
Need
you
a
like them?
motion?
Well, I'm not,
I didn't think we did any motions yet.
no, I'm just, does
Yeah.
anybody else feel as though we should add some trees?
Sure.
And where would we add them? Where would, or perhaps,
I wouldn't, yeah, put them along the side of the road, you know,
Shade
within the,
trees.
within the, right of way, or the, within that zone there, and, put
I
'em
would,
off the pavement,
yeah, up here, so they don't interfere with infiltration.
yeah, and,
One, two.
give them plenty of room. It looks like you only put in a couple, you know, one on the low side of that 87 contour that comes back on itself, yeah, cause that's an
Yeah, yeah.
open spot.
paying attention here?
And then, there's an open spot above it.
Mhm.
Let the other ones breathe and they'll spread out, and some kids will climb them someday.
And
How about at the?
tap some of those sugar maples.
How about at this, line? Right in front of the houses,
Whereabouts? Tilly?
somewhere around here, you know, at the drive.
Over here?
Over in
No,
front of the
right.
houses there?
Right at the end of these,
Talking here, Tilly?
you know, like right
Where
at.
the hand is down.
One
two
here
there
and one
and two
there.
that-
Well, bear in mind that this is the property that was
You
already
could put
sold.
one where it's facing
So-
1, 2,
Yeah,
that would be a problem.
this, that's not
Is
even,
it-
that property
Right
isn't
where you
in
have
their
the hand
court.
now would be.
Right.
That'd be a good spot.
Yeah, you see it right when you're coming up
Same
the
on-
drive.
Yeah.
Same on the other, when they have, you know, you could do like 4 or 3 of them, 1, 2, 3.
Where you have that row of 4 that you're retaining,
Mhm.
you have 3 retaining, but there's,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen them, so I don't know, but do they have size to them?
They're big, yeah.
So I wouldn't compete with those by putting one there.
Okay.
But I think you have nothing but
There's
open
existing
space
tree
where
line here, so.
basin 1, 2 is. That's a great spot to put something. And that's good for resale. I mean, it's good for sale of the property too, I would think.
Absolutely.
Not gonna hurt it.
Are we good with that?
Sure.
I think it's an improvement.
And, Bill, you know where to put them?
Yep, I will show
Do
them on
you
the
have
plan.
that,
We'll show them on the plan?
Wendy,
Rob will be watching.
the tree sites?
Yeah, they have a preference on
No,
species.
I don't.
in the middle,
Can we
This one.
repeat it for Wendy to put
right on the
in
board.
Sure.
That's all right, no, it doesn't, I can get it. for you.
Okay.
Rob, do you have a
Whose
recommendation
responsibility?
on species?
Maybe in the, maybe spring.
Bob,
I think some of the red maple cultivars, you know, the sunsets, the October glories, those are all readily available. They're really hardy. I'd stay away from the sugar maples, for now. You got some out there, and salt isn't something that they're a friend to. The honey locust are nice trees. Those are great trees too. And the ashes, the green ashes, not the white, the green ashes. Alkas.
and,
Caliber trees.
Bob, what were you saying? You had mentioned something?
I was wondering about Putting a tree on the border, whose responsibility
On
is
the,
it?
directly on the property
Yeah.
line? Um,
It's a line tree, it belongs to both of them, either one can cut it down.
Okay, okay. So hopefully neither one of them can cut it down.
So we can put it right on the line.
Okay.
That way we keep, both of them, they can't cut it down because it belongs to both of them.
Well, they have shared
See you, Rick.
responsibility.
They're gonna have to
anyway, so-
they're gonna have to get along
They-
anyway.
They're gonna have to be very cooperative with one another.
Gets to climate, right?
Larry, anything
I,
else?
I have no other comments that I think the board needs to discuss tonight. Everything else has been taken care of. Our satisfaction.
So how many trees did you count for the?
I get
I have
three,
three.
right?
One, two,
And the third one.
three. One on each side of Jefferson Court by the 87 contour, and one
At the property line. Behind the basin.
on the property line behind Basin 1-2.
Howard, at the entrance to the main road where Jefferson Court ties into the public road, North Street, on the north side of the entrance, that one that's being retained,
Yeah.
what is that?
That's a big maple.
Maple, I think. It
Big
could be
maple?
an oak, I'm not sure.
Is it-
But it's
is it-
kinda
is
ripping
it-
up the
is it
sidewalk as
healthy?
it is, you know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And the rope goes right through the sidewalk and it's kinda pulling it up, but, you know.
And then there's a small fruit tree, it's in the,
'Cause
right
I-
there, that's, I think
Right.
it's either an apple or dogwood, it's one of those two,
Cause
I recall. That's kinda small, it's only like
Kinda
a
tough
6
to
inch
wanna
tree.
put 'em
that,
against the
that
sidewalk.
tree, so the tree that you're retaining, you've got, it looks like contours on all three sides of it, on both sides
Is
of
there
it.
much of a grade change?
Yeah, it's not a lot of change right
And
there, it
it's-
just blends right back in, so
That's
it's
That's
the
right,
hit
sidewalk.
right
right,
down.
right in there.
Yeah,
But-
take this down to.
Maybe,
It's a grade,
Still.
you know? 86 and it
it's
was.
just, if it's a big tree, and I
Big
know you
roots.
guys know this, so the roots that are
Big,
important
yeah.
are out by the crown.
This is the rest
They're
of it?
probably very close to the surface, so even if you're coming in
I
6
wish
inches,
we had hard copies of
if you're
this.
taking away
Well,
like
it just
half
came in Monday.
the root, you're probably gonna lose the tree.
I'm sure we can.
It's hard to,
Yeah.
Placing
it's
it
hard
along
to
the
save
outside.
those.
We could put another one to replace it on the
Inside.
on the
huh?
inside of the property.
I think that would be a good idea if as you're doing it, you can't save that,
Yeah,
put
if we
another
can't
one
say, I
on
can
the
put one and
inside.
say, propose if that one is damaged to the point where it has to come down. Place one there as well, so before she.
Yeah. You
For
won't,
a
yeah, you
couple of
won't,
years.
yeah,
So you kinda have to make the decision to take it down and replace it.
yeah. I haven't seen the tree, so I'm in the dark, I don't know how nice, how worthy it is to try to save it, but it is the public drive, and it would be nice to have a tree there.
Maybe we could talk to Peter Durkee about it, he's the tree warden, right? And it's on a public way,
Yeah.
it's in the right of way.
No.
At this point, I'm gonna ask if there is, any public comment, any abutters, neighbors, anybody in the public? Hearing none? Hearing none? Hearing none. Did I see a hand? I didn't see a hand. At this point, it sounds like, well, it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Howard, please. We're looking, because it's, ever since 2011, courts and lanes are special permit. So I think the first thing that we ought to do before we go for waivers is to vote on whether we will approve the special permit part of this decision.
Correct.
Is that correct? Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to move we, accept the special permit.
Bob moves to approve the special permit for, what is this called?
Jefferson Court.
Jefferson Court. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Tim. Tim seconds. Discussion? Tony, are you ready to vote on this, on the special permit portion of this? I mean, because if this fails, there's no point, this dies right now, we don't need to go through all the, details.
I thought we would do all the waivers and everything. I mean, I don't see how you could do a special permit without completing it. I didn't think you could separate it like that.
Am I
What's the
procedurally doing it
concern?
incorrect?
I don't,
The special
No,
permit's
I-
part of the subdivision, so you.
I know that, and it just seems to me that, you know, first you do the waivers and then you, the special permit, but I'm not that familiar with courts, so this is,
The special permit, I think Tilly goes first to just the idea of the whole project.
it's the use of it.
Yeah, and so it's the big picture, and then, so you get that agreed to, and then you go to the waivers, which are specific.
Right.
Then you
A lot of the
go to
waivers are in regards to,
So you vote on the special permit first.
right, the waivers are more with 365 in terms of construction standards, and then you're just doing the zoning right now, so that's the higher level of 165. So you approve that, then you can move into all the finite.
Big picture first, details next. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, okay,
Are you good with voting on this?
sure.
Is everyone good with voting on it? I'm gonna call the question. This is about, with reference to, motion was made to approve the special permit for Jefferson Court. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All abstaining,
Abstain.
one abstention. The motion is approved 4-0 with one abstention. How, did I do that incorrectly? Was that supposed to be a roll call vote?
No,
Do we need to do roll call?
no,
Not for
it's
special
only
permit.
executive
Not for special
session.
permit? Forgive me, I'm tired. I lose process when I get tired. I guess at this point, with the board's permission, unless somebody has anything else that they'd like to bring up, another point, I think it's most appropriate if we vote on the waivers that are being requested. Does that work for everyone? Sound like we're
Sounds
proceeding?
like from the discussion, there won't be any additional waivers added. So you can vote on the 7 that are presented.
We might as well start with, if you have your title sheet in front of you. We'll begin to vote the waivers. Maybe the easiest way to do this is just to call them out and just see if people are for or against. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
And at this point, the first one is title block layout.
I'm good.
You're good with it? Bob?
Yep.
Yeah,
I'm good with it. Let the record show that the board shows unanimously that the first waiver should be,
Unanimous consent.
unanimous consent, good. The second one is street name in pencil. Tim? Well, Tilly? Myself. I'm not intentionally ignoring Rob.
Don't worry.
I'm presuming the abstention.
Understood.
Presumably you are intentionally.
Not ignoring him, I
No,
just, I know it's an
we're being
abstention.
efficient with the timing of the,
We were, we
Yeah.
used to be being efficient, but
The
Let's
second
discuss
waiver, street name in pencil is waived. Number 3, the benchmark bounds and discs. Tim?
Good with it.
Bob?
sure.
Tilly?
right, good. That's usually yours.
Yeah, I'm gonna vote no on that,
Why?
because I firmly believe that bounds between the neighbors should be clear and easily seen, and it's just the thing I have that,
Oh, this is, I'm sorry, I clarify that.
Sure.
This is not the boundary lot corners, we're gonna put the lot corners in. This is the benchmark, the elevation. It requires an elevation on the site.
right,
We have one across the street right now, and I'll be more than happy to bring it into the site and the as-built. So I think we're just asking it for not to be on the plan right now. We're gonna actually put it on during the as-built, when we actually set a bound on
Okay.
the street. So we're gonna actually put the benchmark on the site, it's just not gonna be on the plan right now.
okay, that's great, that'll make it a lot easier when they're dealing with the micro topography there.
Exactly. So,
Great, thank you. Let the record show that motion, that was approved, 3-1, okay? Cul-de-sac diameter roadway, right-of-way and pavement, good with, going with the Y turnaround?
Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah.
Tilly? Unanimous consent to grant that waiver. Pavement width 18 feet for court. Tim, you okay with the pavement at the, what do we have there, 16 feet in the front and tapering down to 12? 16? Was it 16 feet
16
at
for
the opening?
first 30, yeah.
And tapering to 12?
Yeah.
Everybody's good with that? Good with that? I agree. That's unanimous consent for that one. That one's number 5, I believe. Number 6, property line radius 30 feet. At the beginning of the roadway, we're waiving that to 12.5-foot radius. Is that correct?
15 and a half.
15?
15.52 to be exact.
I was able to make it a little bigger than 12.
Oh, it's showing on the, so it's showing on the plan, on the,
16 feet pavement
no,
width.
it's pavement width. I'm talking about the 12 and a, it says 12.5-foot.
It's actually
Property
been
line
corrected to
radius.
15,
No, that's,
25 too.
yeah, you're looking at an older plan. The 325 should.
It's up here on the plan. This is the new waiver, the radius.
Okay. What is the,
Before
what
this
does
one
the
came
face
out
page
straight.
show? What is the waiver request page show? The face page,
First sheet.
there you go. 15 points, okay.
That was on actually Larry caught when I reviewed it with him, so
Okay.
I changed it right
So-
prior to.
These are a
Should be
little
15.5.
antiquated, right?
Yeah.
And last but not least, the 7th is the maximum, is everybody good with 15?
Yeah.
15 and a half
Absolutely,
foot?
yeah.
A little more than that? Tilly?
Right.
That's a good radius? Let the record show that that shows unanimously. And maximum grade, Larry, you're all right with the 2%?
Yes.
It's getting pretty
Good.
steep there, Larry.
It's getting the way it should be.
What is the
What?
regular subdivision grade to,
At the intersection, it's the same,
same one,
1.25%.
same type?
Which is too flat.
It's too flat, yeah.
It's too flat.
Something that should be changed?
Should be.
Should be.
Maybe, maybe we'll look at some regulation,
Why don't you put that in
regulatory
the
changes.
Put that in the minutes.
Yeah,
well,
put that in the
It's a
minutes so we
suggestion
can.
for-
Something we consider, we should consider, definitely. Wendy, let the record show that that passed unanimously too, and all of the requested waivers were passed. Am I correct? Is that right? Good.
They all passed with everyone, the motion, the benchmark bounds was 3-1.
Main thing is the applicant has received all of the waivers.
The thick,
Right.
no, you remove the thickness of the,
Yep, that's gone.
so you're gonna make it that thick.
Correctness, yeah. That used to be number 6.
I remember that one, yeah.
Oh, binder and
Binder,
top.
yep, that'd be the
Gotcha.
Subdivision regulation. Binder.
Yeah, you really shouldn't skimp on that.
The waivers will be outlined in the decision, and of course, the board will formally approve the decision, and that's the formal way of accepting the waivers, so.
Okay, and, well, just so that we can give them guidance, in case we weren't waiving something, because it sounds like we're doing a quick redraw of the plan. And, at this point, everybody seems okay. Howard, you gonna come up with a draft decision for us? You know what, the board's looking for? At this point, it's up to the board whether we wanna close this and leave it hanging, or if we wanna continue this, we'll have some new Mylars and our new plan drawn out for the next continuation, if we continue. We'll have a decision, a draft decision we can approve. And,
The only thing, Mr. Chairman, with Tim not being on the board, as of what?
Rob,
Oh, yeah. No, you, Tim, you're not running for re-election, right?
no,
Right, so I think there's only one more meeting before the election, is that? I guess is there a way to vote it subject to?
These minor changes.
we voted the special permit that you
Right,
needed 4 for.
right. Okay,
They could wait until-
all right, yeah, okay,
Just read the script, Mitch.
yeah, all right.
Motion to,
So how many signatures would you need on that?
I guess 3 on the subdivision.
Yeah.
motion to continue, Howard, do we have, what's
Four.
our,
You're gonna- you're gonna-
April 23rd, we have 2 public hearings. We have Turning Leaf and the opening hearing for the OSRD for Chaplain Hills. The next meeting is this second Wednesday in May, and that's the 14th.
what, second Wednesday in May?
Yeah.
The But you're
Is
gonna
the
need,
14th?
excuse me, you're gonna need the 4 signatures on the special permit.
Right, so can you vote to close the hearing?
We did, we
I
didn't
think
do
we
that
should.
yet.
I think you should,
You wanna close the hearing?
I'd recommend
Yes.
voting on it to close the hearing and move it along.
I'll go with that
Yeah,
if I know how long do we have to issue the decision?
14 days, I think, isn't it?
Oh,
I
that,
don't know off the
that
top of
could
my
be,
head, I don't get that question very often.
that could be,
We'll agree to
thought
give
of.
you an extension on that. You can do that tonight if you want. I think just procedurally, just to make
I
sure we
understand.
have the 4 votes.
I
that-
get
I
it.
guess that's what I guess that's what I was trying to
I'm
say.
on the same page.
Okay.
I'm on the same page for that.
Well, if you vote to close, then you're not gonna have a public hearing on the 23rd, but you're gonna,
On the 23rd
of
of,
April.
you
can-
won't have a public hearing?
Well, if you close,
Close it.
if you close the public hearing now, then it'd just be
There's no more
administrative.
public hearing.
Right.
To
Yeah.
accept the decision in the Mylar. Would you wanna do that on April 23rd?
Seems.
Yeah,
Because the
that
next
would be
meeting after
already-
that,
That
it's
would
May
be pretty
14th.
quick. That
And
would
what else
take-
is on the 23rd?
Minor, real minor changes, so.
Yeah.
Turning leaf and the OSRD for Chaplain Hills,
Nightmare.
It's a big one.
so.
Oof. Chase 2 rabbits, you catch neither one. Chase 3, might as well just stay in the cabin.
If
they
you
all
vote to
did.
close, if you vote to, I mean, our preference would be to vote to close it tonight.
Hmm?
We'll give you, whatever extension you think you need.
I'll
after
confirm
we-
the dates, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, I think it's gonna be
We'd like it
before the
closed tonight, but
14th.
we don't wanna force you to have to, write the decision under pressure. I guess that's what we're. That's what we're looking for. No, we don't wanna
I'm
start.
gonna write
the-
it with thumb screws.
No, we don't wanna start that 14-day clock,
Mhm.
but we'd like to close it tonight. And I believe,
I can think of a house on Elm Street that never would have been built, but for a hearing that got closed and someone that got sick.
Yeah, you,
House never would have been built. Went over the 21 day. I thought it was 21 days to issue, but what do I know? I don't know the stuff.
Okay, let's see if I brought the book.
if anything, you could give us a, well,
Let me ask a question. If a board were to vote to grant a special permit, and then the signing of the Mylars, would that not be ministerial?
I would say so.
And wouldn't Rob's vote count?
No,
No, his signature would count if he was on the board.
no.
Of course it would.
What,
I believe it would.
what is, what,
I don't know.
how long would it take to have them come back on the 20, whatever that date is?
come back in 2 weeks to, the board would have to have, discussion on the decision.
But what discussion is there? We've all had it, and the discussion is.
Yeah, I can write the decision, you can send me directly without copying other board members, any comments that you may have. But
Right,
then
if
you
you
just need
send
to.
it out ahead to us, like a week before the meeting,
Right, and,
and then we could reply to you with something we remembered that you forgot, or whatever's a problem that,
right, and then have it there, you'll still have discussion on it, so.
I think everybody's pretty clear on.
Can we limit that discussion to 5 minutes?
Absolutely, Harry.
Yeah.
Can we?
You can.
I don't like to be a jerk about
Well,
things.
It's always
That's your-
safe to
that's
do
your job
extension anyway.
It's my
just-
nature.
If you're gonna go, if you go
It's your
beyond the
charge.
23rd,
Same
you
to
need to
do with
provide us
extension.
with the Form H if
Get
the
the
public
extension.
hearing continues.
Yeah, I mean, we're not, again, not to repeat, we'd like it closed tonight.
Mhm.
We're not trying to do anything underhanded procedurally, so whatever extension, if you wanna put that as part of the vote,
Safer that way.
that's fine.
You don't know what's gonna happen.
So, what motion am I hearing, kids? Somebody make a
Close the
motion.
Public hearing,
Motion by Tim
Jefferson Court.
to close the public hearing for Jefferson Court. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Rob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. All abstaining.
Abstain, I don't think I could second that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Oh, was that
I
you,
was
Rob? I thought that was
caught up
Bob.
in the
I just was
excitement
gonna-
of the moment.
I thought that was Bob.
Jumping ahead.
That
It
wasn't
could
you
have
that
been me,
said
it
that.
would definitely.
I don't wanna
have
appear
been.
rude either.
Let the
but-
record show that
Right,
the
I just
chairman
popped in my head.
heard Mr. Watts second that motion.
Thank you.
That's why I wrote
Thought
Bob.
that's what it was.
Yeah. Motion carries 4-0-1.
Yes.
See, sometimes it's good that I have a hearing problem, right? The hearing's closed, thank you very much.
All right.
And, well, get everything back by, what is it, the 26th?
What about an extension?
You just closed it. It's over.
No, we're not
For the
extending
decision, for the
For
decision.
time of decision.
Wanna send me
for-
that? and we'll-
Yeah, I'll send you something,
Yeah.
I'll send it back.
Yeah, we'll do that.
They'll accept it at the
Thank you.
next meeting.
Good luck, do a nice job. I
Thank
know
you.
it's gonna look pretty.
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you for your time.
I never heard of an extension after you closed. Never.
It's an extension, it's a little unique, but we're not gonna need it anyway. We're gonna have plenty of time. The only reason we'd need it is if Howard gets hit by a bus or something. I need 2 seconds to visit the little boys' room. Excuse me. You guys wanna discuss something, or like, isn't there something like Merrimack Valley or something, MPO? Wanna fill us in on that, Howard?
The planning office has 3 items. I went to 2 meetings at Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. One for the Merrimack Planning Organization, where we review TIP and transportation funding. So we're still working on getting some funds done for the improvements to the rail trail. And the other one was a regional planning meeting, where all the planners for the 14 municipalities in the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission's oversight got together and talked about some issues, and the largest part of that discussion was if planning policy in Merrimack Valley was addressing poverty. And so there was some discussion on addressing poverty through transportation planning, but nothing beyond that. So the effort continues on funding resources and finding grants.
Howard, what was the nature of the conversation about transportation? It's an area that I am interested in, just as a personal.
With the
point of
planning
view.
organization, we work to do next year, 5-year, and 10-year efforts in terms of budget and where funding is gonna come in for roadway improvements, alternative transportation funding sources.
Merrimack Valley Transit Authority and that.
Well, there is discussion about replacing buses, but a lot of it goes to understanding what's called the Transportation Improvement Program, where funding will be allocated, what we can expect from the federal government, the state government, next year, 5 years. So it's a snapshot as well as a walk distance oversight. And some things never get far into the queue, the viability goes away, but an issue may be roadway improvements of 97 from downtown Groveland to the Groveland-Georgetown line. And then there's input from the highway surveyor about whether we need to start thinking about putting a line item in improving from Groveland to downtown Georgetown for the rest of 97. So those are things that might impact us locally. There's something that's in there about a park and ride facility that's never gotten much traction. That's over at 133 and 95. So those are the issues that find funds, and those are the issues that get discussed and never move into receiving funds.
Primarily then highway.
Highway, local roads, anything with the state is certainly considered, but even local. We can make petitions to do traffic studies in downtown Georgetown, and if the traffic studies warrant some type of improvement, then we can go after grants and get money from the state and the federal government to improve something in downtown
Thanks.
Georgetown.
You really did answer my questions. It's more contextual and
Howard, you-
Right.
do you see the Globe in terms of grants, today with the state and monies being made available that just showed up for road improvements?
No, no, I didn't, but to add to that, one thing that is happening is that the bond to pay off the big dig and a lot of the funding that had to go towards that is now becoming free because it's almost paid.
So the reason I'm bringing that up is so that now we know it as a board, but could you communicate that with Peter Durkee? I'm sure he already is aware of it, but the article was, the money just became available and you gotta act fast, but there's, it seemed like a fair bit for improving roads because of the winter.
Okay.
And we can
Special
certainly
fund.
use that in this.
So, yeah, my street needs it. Looks like it's Bay Route.
It's
State.
taking up, taking
133
the money
is
that they
over
will take it out of the bond,
Yeah.
and then they'll give it out.
North
I
Street
don't
is
know where the
terrible.
money's coming from, but they're gonna put out a lot of money.
Yes.
towards improving roads, yeah, at least according to the Globe.
And I can just quickly mention this, the second, the report to the Board of Selectmen regarding all the planning board articles for the warrant's been sent out.
Excellent, excellent. And you'll be
This is the
reporting on
final
Harmony?
one. Yep, with Harmony Lane, then you're done for this town meeting.
Fantastic.
Yeah, if there's a big money project, I wanna see a north-south rail link. Damn it. There you go.
Okay, why don't we move on to the second of the public hearings for tonight, and that will be the East Main Street Recreational Facility. And Jimmy and representatives, please come up.
And just so the board knows, Gale is here, they're the new engineering firm. They have provided an updated plan set for distribution to the board tonight. So, when you wanna see them, do you wanna see them now or receive them after the meeting?
Oh, I'll throw it in my bag if any.
And this have provided the planning office with an updated stormwater report, which has been forwarded on to Larry Graham, as well as a full-size set for his consideration.
So we have some full-size sets for everybody,
All right.
or whatever anybody wants?
I also like to introduce Bill Seymour, who is the Director of Civil Engineering, and Ryan Morrison, who are the two members. My position will be, the subsequent meetings will probably be set up by Elizabeth Wade as the main contact for the Park and Rec on this project, but I'm running it because she's working tonight, so.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you. Bill and Ryan,
Morrison.
welcome. Why don't you,
You did not, Alicia, thank you.
oh, excellent, that helps her get the spelling correct. Why don't you brief us and let us know what's happened since the continuation? We know that, basically, well, tell us about these plans. Are we seeing something here that's greatly changed from the old plans that we had? Because I haven't seen them yet, so.
Yeah. Again, I'm Bill Seymour, I'm the Director of Civil Engineering for Gale. We were engaged by the Park and Rec Commission about 60 days ago to evaluate the plans and to update them and to essentially take over the project from Lou, who's taken a position, I understand, with the town. What you've got is plans that have been completely redone in terms of we own the plans.
Mhm.
We've redone them, we've checked them all thoroughly. On the other hand, particularly given the investment that this board and the town has made in the project and the progress that you've made to get to the point where you are, they are conceptually very similar to those that you have seen. We're gonna talk a little bit more detail about that. The things that we've done, first of all, we cleaned them up. Line weights, line types, dimensions, radiuses on curves, stationing, we've cleaned them up to bring them to a standard that's consistent with the town's requirements. We did do some field verification survey. We weren't confident that the survey was closing and that the topography was correct. So we put a survey crew out there for a day and took a bunch of shots and basically brought them to a tighter standard. There were some disparities between, we went to the registry, we looked at the registered plans. There were some disparities with regard to some of the angles in the property line. They were subtle, they're not substantive, but we did change them. We updated the alignment of the layout of the road. We added some sectional views. There was no cross sections. It wasn't apparent to us how the roadway and the sidewalks and the curbs and everything were to get built. So we added sections at key stations throughout the layout. We tweaked the design of the parking lots, but they're essentially as you understand them. We did add permeable pavement to the sides. By the way, we did watch the past 3 hearings. We got the CDs because we wanted to know what the operational issues were. We did a complete fine grading of the site. We haven't changed the grading, but there was a lot of information lacking. Again, as it goes to layout and construction, we think there's now sufficient information to more completely convey the grading and drainage intent, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We did go through element by element the drainage plan. We tweaked some of the sizes, some of the inverts, some of the rims, and we did a very comprehensive pre and post hydrological model and calculations and stormwater report, which we're going to talk about some of the big pieces of tonight. That's where we are. So although the plans have changed, they haven't changed in terms of what you have seen in the past in terms of the fundamental layout and adjacencies and program. It's really a question of more detail, better grading, better property line, better topo, better details, better sections and profiles, and we've brought this plans, I think, to a bit higher standard, and I think it'll hopefully improve our dialogue. That's where we are. Questions before we do? I assume, although you haven't seen the plans, and Larry, although we filed a complete revised set of plans with a new date, not a revision date, because it's on our title block.
Sure.
Of 1 April.
Okay.
You have those, you had them on 1 April, and I understand that you've received them recently.
I did.
We understand that you will not have had a chance to look at those tonight. I don't suspect. We will request a continuance. I don't expect you to take any action this evening. This is kind of you to get to know us and us to give you a sense of where we are.
Thank you very much, Bill.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you.
Ryan, why don't you step through some of the big pieces, some of the changes? Sure. And to the extent that you want us to slow down, we'll slow down. We'll take whatever questions you have.
One of the first things we did.
Could you just do me a favor and pull that a little closer and
Absolutely.
sort of angle it like that?
Usually when we present a project to a board, we would give a full-blown presentation, beginning with existing conditions and program and layout and impacts. We're not going to do that. You've spent an awful lot of time and energy getting to know the project in detail. You probably know the project better than we, in some instances, certainly the history of it. What we will kind of focus on is some of the changes that I've referred to, particularly as it relates to hydrology.
One of the first things we did was we took a look at existing conditions and what constraints there are on the site. These are constraints you're all very familiar with. There's FEMA floodplain zone on the site, several sections of wetlands, isolated wetlands, border vegetative wetlands. We took a look at buffer zones and how they may apply to the project. These are all things you guys are pretty familiar with, you've seen on the site, and they haven't really changed very much since Lou presented them to you. So I think everyone has a good understanding of that.
I think it's important for you to understand that we do too.
Yes.
I'm not trying to truncate your
Sure.
presentation in any way. I'd just like to, where there haven't been real substantive changes to what we've already gone through. I don't know if you're aware of it, but you said you looked at
did.
some of and correct me if I'm wrong, the only sticking point, so to speak, that's preventing this from being approved at this point, to my knowledge, was
Hydrology of the front end.
the front entrance.
We'll jump
There
right
seemed
to
to
it.
be a
We'll jump right
disparity
to it.
between what Lou represented, what Larry
We wanted to
calculated.
give you a confidence level that we had taken a pretty detailed and comprehensive, thorough approach to some of the more subtle revisions. And we were gonna step through that, but we'll go right to the hydrology.
I just wanted then, since you're bringing it up that way, I had a number of comments in addition to that one when I was
Okay.
speaking as a resident.
Okay.
I don't know, Bill, if you saw that exhibit that I had submitted of those points to
I have not seen
Howard.
that. That
But-
doesn't mean we don't have it in the record, but I
Yeah.
personally can't speak to that.
So I won't go over those now.
Okay.
But,
If,
should
if
get
you
a
reviewed the
copy.
meeting recordings,
Yep.
then you would recognize
I do.
Mr. Hoover and the bullet points that he's referring to.
so you may have already covered them.
Yeah.
But,
And-
but
and
I,
can
my
send 'em
point
on
in,
to-
my point in that is that for just myself as one member, it's not just one element.
Fair
Oh,
enough.
yes.
What we will do is, and we'll talk about a continuation date, obviously, at the end of our comments. But we will review that, is that document part of the record? I assume that it is.
I'm presuming
And
it
are you
is.
anticipating that we should respond to that in,
I'm looking at it as though, this has been a long set of hearings, and to my knowledge, all of the waivers that, and again, I haven't seen your title sheet, so I
Yep.
don't know what waivers are requested.
we're not.
But all of the requested waivers, with the exception of one, were granted.
Yep.
And that was the last one, was the the stormwater calculation.
Why don't we
That
get
was the
through
last
that, we'll
one.
see where it goes, and to the extent that we can,
Well, you
Be
have to
responsible.
satisfy that to me, because my head's spinning.
it's really,
One engineer says it works, one says it doesn't. I think you're the tiebreaker, I don't know.
So what we've done is we've,
Well, Larry's,
is Mr. Graham the one that says it doesn't, that it has not
He's
previously?
the real tiebreaker here, I think.
Yeah, I'm very confident that we can work to reach a mutually acceptable, conclusion.
make it happen.
so we realized that that was a point of contention previously, was that front watershed. So what we did was we broke down the changes that have occurred in that watershed, and it might be eventually easier to see it up there than it is for you guys to look here. What we did was we broke down ground cover within that watershed, and we broke down the area that pertains to that watershed, meaning which areas flow towards East Main Street or Route 133 in both existing and proposed conditions. And what this color chart does is it's able to break down what changes have been made from proposed to existing. So in the blue area that you see up the roadway, that's pavement that's going to be replaced. That's pavement that exists today that will be replaced with new pavement at the end of this project during construction. Pavement with areas that are indicated in orange are areas that are pavement today that will be removed at the end of the project, meaning they will be turned into grass areas, or in that one particular area there's a little bit of wall. Areas that are indicated in purple are areas that were part of the watershed heading towards the front prior to us changing grading in the existing conditions. In the proposed conditions, because we've changed grading, this area is gonna flow towards the back, towards that stone trench, and make its way down to the wetlands. And there's a finite area of yellow, which is actually pavement that will be added. In addition, one of the things that was discussed previously was the fact that there was gonna be pavement added in the sidewalk. As Bill had mentioned, we changed that pavement to permeable pavement, which acts much like grass. It has a runoff coefficient of 61, or an assumed runoff coefficient of 61. This allows us to not have impervious surface in that area, allows water to infiltrate into the ground. You provide a stone base underneath it where water can store and stage up. In addition, another thing that was done as part of our grading scheme that wasn't previously done was we changed the slopes of this roadway. So previously Lou had the roadway sloped at 5%. Due to our experience with constructability, we've lowered that to 4.5%. This allows the construction a little bit of tolerance when they build it for ADA access up that sidewalk. What that all means when it's said and done is we've been able to reduce the amount of pavement. As you can see, the pavement being removed, which is in orange, far outweighs the pavement being added in yellow. In addition, due to grading changes, the area that is shaded in purple is now not flowing towards East Main Street, it's now flowing towards the back. And what this has allowed us to do is reduce peak flows to East Main Street. They're not significant decreases because we're not talking about significant areas, we're talking about, a couple hundred square feet either way. In short, for all the storms, the decrease in peak flows have been less than, I think, a tenth or just around a tenth. I've also broke down in the table those areas that we've changed. As far as existing area impervious, there was 0.35 acres to start with. Impervious area to be removed is 0.01 acres. Impervious area to be added is plus 0.006 acres. So they're really small amounts of land that are being changed. And impervious area to be diverted to watershed 2 is 0.025 acres, or only 1,000 square feet. This results in a proposed impervious area of 0.32 acres flowing towards East Main Street. And if you can zoom in on the bottom, that gives the board an idea to what kind of changes this is making to the peak flows towards East Main Street. Yep, the very bottom chart there.
396.
In the existing 2-year storm, we had 1.27 cubic feet per second, and the proposed we're at 1.24 cubic feet per second. And as it goes down, 10-year,
The velocity
2.38.
decreased.
It's decreased,
Decreasing.
correct.
So that,
We've decreased on every storm.
great.
The calculations have been sealed and have been provided, and we look forward to your comments.
Larry, you already have those, Larry?
I just received them.
Yes.
Great. Does the board have, any other questions? Tonight, Larry hasn't had a chance to check the hydrology, the calcs. Really not fair to ask him to make any comments unless there's something, unless Larry, there's something other than that that comes out, with respect to, not the hydrology, but any other general concerns?
I'd like to I can make a couple of comments, although I
I'd
haven't
love
looked
to
at
hear
the
it.
plans from my
Love to hear
previous involvement with the review. And I asked the board through, I think, previous reviews, if they had had any response from the abutter, because whether or not the calculations show that there is a decrease or increase in the runoff down the road, it all runs down the north side of East Main Street in a westerly direction and across the abutter's property.
United Foam is aware of the request. They had scheduled themselves to come to the last meeting, but Park and Rec had requested it just to be continued to tonight. So at the next meeting, they'll certainly be invited to attend.
And I think the board should, at a minimum, have their concurrence with this plan if there is no physical, structural, stormwater mitigation that's gonna keep it from running across their property like it does.
I'm
Sean,
not
do you-
following you, Larry.
John, do you want to comment on our discussions with them?
We've
Oh,
spoken
you-
to United Foam Products on two occasions. They are aware of Larry's comments regarding the water flowing across. They haven't expressed, I don't wanna speak for them, but we asked them what their thoughts were about that. They didn't express it as a very large concern. Obviously, they wouldn't like it to increase. I prefer that he spoke for himself, but as in talking to him, he hasn't expressed that as a concern, and he's aware of the comment regarding the water coming across his parking lot.
Presuming all your calculations are right here, you're showing a decrease.
It is decreasing, correct.
I think just in a general statement, as one board member, those kinds of communications would want to get in writing for the record from the abutters for whatever the issues are that may or may not affect them, that they're okay with it, and it's on the record, and the town knows they're okay with it,
Sure.
and there's no problems later on. So if they're okay with it, that's
We will-
great.
We will put together a record of comments that we've had with them. Another point that we've been talking about is what to do at that, there's a pinch point down at the bottom of the roadway where the sidewalk releases to 133. And, the United Foam's, property, there's a tight point between the parking lot and the sidewalk. And currently there's some shrubbery there, which is gonna come out in regards to the sidewalk. And then they wanna provide some kind of screening along the backside of that sidewalk, so we've been in contact with them about that as well. And we'll have to get any decision in that in writing as well.
I just had one question on the porous pavement. After it stockpiles underneath, where does it go?
It infiltrates into the ground. In this site in particular, you have also very good soils. Typically on the site, A and B soils, and they drain very well. So the idea is that it would drain underneath into the soils and allow infiltration for the site.
Because that'll be something, Larry, when you look at that, I'll be interested in making sure that the capacity is there to take a heavy rain or flood,
Right.
whatever may be.
In terms of the hydrological model, that strip of pervious pavement is modeled to perform just like the vegetated area that it's replacing.
Yeah, no, and I understand that part. I think it's the amount of storage capacity it has for the.
It will have what it has today.
Yeah,
It will behave like it does today.
yeah.
My-
So
my
as
own-
long as it does that, that's,
My only comment with respect to that, until I look at the whole picture, is that it is a little bit on the steep side to be counting on absorption through the walk.
Yep.
To get it to your reservoirs, to get it to the
Yep.
soils beneath. So, caution. Caution flag for me.
It's saying
it's,
that it would tend to wanna flow over rather than.
On a heavy-
permeate.
Yes.
on a heavy rain.
Yes.
And the steeper the angle, the more inclined it would be. to
The porous
walk.
pavement works best if it's almost flat.
So the points, the 61 factor or whatever isn't necessarily indicative of how the water would.
The factor that you might be speaking of, I haven't seen, is probably, the factor is okay, but as far as that, but the runoff, the behavior of the runoff, if you will, once you get enough water on there, will, if it's too steep, the water will not sit on, and because it doesn't go down into the pervious parts of the pavers or the sidewalk as quickly as it's coming down from the sky.
Does it go down any less favorably than a grass strip? My understanding was after 24-hour rainstorm, or the first inch of rain, or half inch,
When the,
it's it, and you're running
Soil
off anyway.
saturated, right.
You're running over grass
Right,
anyway.
right.
It's just running,
and that's basically true.
so, doesn't sound like it's, well,
My bigger question on
run
this
your,
whole
run your
thing is,
numbers, find out.
the
Yeah,
bigger
and
question on this whole thing is,
proof will be in the pudding.
for me, which has nothing to do with engineering, but
Maintenance.
what does the sidewalk do, and how many people will use the sidewalk, since there really is very little sidewalk along 133 to get you to the beginning of this project? And won't most all the people that use these fields, because they're so far removed from the road, be driving in and out? And it's been a comment that I made in the past, and it's not engineering, it's more or less.
Operational.
What's the
Yeah,
point?
Parks and Rec, and why you know.
Well, the kids will come from the high school, they'll go down Renard Lane, cut across, and the only way for them to get on those fields, if they wanna use them for practice, will be come down Pillsbury Lane and come down to United Foam and go up that way. We don't have any right-of-ways going through the ponds, so you're not gonna cut through the ponds unless you cut through, the Wright's house or the Seaberg's house, and they won't like that. So, yeah, you probably, it's something that was discussed earlier in the planning board, and they thought a sidewalk on a public park was, also with the dog park, people may wanna walk up that section with their dogs. I mean, I agree, I would drive in there, but you got the church going in, they have people who running out of the church, it's a public way, both the park and the church, it should have a sidewalk.
Is there a safe pedestrian walk that connects, as you say, Renaud Way down here? Where is it and where does it end?
It ends right at United Foam,
Okay,
and then there's a little section there that there is a large shoulder that if you striped it right, would also be it doesn't have a curb sidewalk.
mhm.
But if you look in Google Maps, it's extra wide. You could stripe that as a sidewalk and say that is a sidewalk. It shows, and you can see it on Google Maps.
Yeah.
Right in there.
Right.
That's the only part that isn't a sidewalk. And, yeah, I agree that the whole sidewalk system isn't great, but I think it was an early discussion with the planning board. They agreed with us, they thought a sidewalk was
I think
favorable.
if you're gonna have it, I think it would be nice to safely connect it with a different type of material or pavement, and so that people going back and forth out of United Foam are aware that this is a pedestrian walk. I mean, to me, it just didn't, there was a disconnect there.
What's that?
It's not engineering, but it's a planning.
Question becomes whether or not you have a right of.
Right, I mean, I think our long-term plan might be something to improve those sidewalks. but that's an interstate highway, and that becomes a long-term issue. That,
It's a tough one. It's like the subdivisions where the sidewalks end for new subdivisions, you know, it's the same kind of question.
I don't recall being, the planning board,
Yeah, I was gonna ask
pushing
you, the
for
planning board
sidewalk
wanted this?
at all. That was the original plan that was presented to us, and so that's how we worked with it.
And we
I
certainly
don't-
didn't object to it, but I
No.
don't think we pushed it.
We didn't push it one way or the other,
Yeah.
and in fact,
I fully agree with
towards
it,
the
but-
end, it appeared that don't do anything.
Well, I kinda like
because we
the
weren't
idea of
getting
sidewalks.
calculations.
I think Chris may have
yeah,
interested in that as a handicap.
Yes, he did talk about that, I
That's
think.
where that came
It's
from.
all
Yeah.
his fault.
no,
I would have been pushing that as well. I don't like the idea of precluding the creation of a sidewalk simply because it does not lead to another sidewalk. From a town perspective, that's self-defeating, and it ensures you will never have sidewalks. It's a bad way of thinking. You create the sidewalks
I agree.
whenever you have the chance, and then where there are no sidewalks, you fill in later.
I think it
In my
was,
mind.
I think it was Elizabeth Wade that was pushing for.
no, I think he's right. I think we brought it up, and Chris Rich brought it up as he wanted it, and I think we kept it because we wanted it as well.
I agree
We
with,
were all
I agree with Harry's logic of, you know, don't bother washing your clothes because they're just gonna get dirty again. I mean, it's like, and I agree with that. I think you do put sidewalks in, you know, if you can't connect them, but that'll be a question for me about do you connect it and do you really address that issue or leave it for so-called the future and it's in the right-of-way kind of thing. I think that's important.
The other part of this is, you might get a track team that'll be practicing and running up. They'll be running up North Street, and they'll be, East Main Street, they'll be running up into the park. You're not very far from the school. You're really not that far from the school at this
And it-
point.
And
What
if
you
the
do wanna
green
do
belt
is
goes through, could be a cross-country trail through there,
Oh,
if the
baby.
green belt ever got established.
the Greenway.
Well, this is,
Greenway.
yeah, this is
This is
probably
the
part
entrance
of
to the
that.
Greenway.
Yes, it is part of, I think, well, it's part of it now.
Yeah.
Who knows, if they keep on buying land out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the planning board is gonna draw the line and say, no sidewalk, never kill for no sidewalks. I did wanna ask a question about if you found anything of any significance or subtlety that you might wanna discuss about the business end of this. Either the parking lot, the skate park, or the ballpark, or the dog
There
area.
were places in the parking lot that I thought needed curb separation or wheel stop separation from sidewalks that was not there. I can cite a dozen things like that that we think are important.
Do you wanna hold off on a more detailed discussion on that?
Well, I think it would be great if we could let Larry look at the plans.
Sure.
Board members look at the plans, have all their questions ready.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how detailed, to find out that you have made some tweaks, but not some overalls. I'm very
You'll have
very
to
eager
look
to
for
see.
them. They're there.
Yeah.
And certainly the added detail is there in terms of cross sections, radius of curbs. The added detail is there, but in terms of substantive changes, you'll have to look for them because, again, we wanted to respect the very long process that you've endured to get to this point.
I'm really glad to hear you guys checked the survey. That was pretty fundamental.
Yep.
So I really appreciate
Well,
that.
you know,
And then it's a
if we're going,
treat,
we are going to, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir.
sorry.
If we're going to seal the plans, then obviously we have to take complete ownership of them.
And you look at the plans and it makes sense.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Please, Larry, please.
How do I proceed for the board in this review? I can go back to my first report or two and compare those items to the Gale plans, or I could just start over and review the Gale plans, or I could focus on specific items that were left dangling, as I understand.
I'd love to let you just focus on as one person, I'd love to let you just focus on the dangling items, which, to me, that was only the stormwater calculations of the street there. But it sounds as though there are some items that you're gonna have to look at. It sounds to me like it's a
If it
full-blown review.
If it would be helpful, we certainly could come by and step you through the
Walk her
things
through
that
the
we've
Delta?
modified. Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Does that
I
work
thought,
for everybody?
I thought at one of our last meetings on this, we had come to the conclusion that there was one or two items that we wanted resolution to, and that the other bullet points that Larry had essentially called into question, we just, like, said we're not gonna worry about those.
I think
Are we gonna
when I
back
said
on
the
that and
waivers,
go
we
back to the
were
full
talking
blown?
about the waiver requests, I think. And in my mind, that's how I resolved it. The problem is, this has gone on for so long and be continued for
Everything,
ad nauseum.
everything would be in the minutes. I just don't wanna rehash stuff that we.
I don't either.
said we weren't gonna
If I
rehash.
may, I think the approach that I had anticipated would be that Larry would certainly review the hydrology of the stormwater management report as the primary issue that was left unresolved by the board. But at the same time, I think it would be prudent for us to sit down with him and talk about things that we've
Those tweaks?
yeah,
Areas of
really
concern.
subtle things
Sure.
that we've tweaked in the plan, just to make sure that he has a comfort level with them. And if I think anything rises to the level of a concern that he might have, we certainly could bring that back to the board.
I think one of Larry's concerns was about a guardrail support post or something being above the electrical
Oh, yep.
lines.
In the final plan of this set, we've moved that electrical line out into the roadway. It's gonna be laid within the roadway itself and not within the trench.
Okay.
That removes it from the guardrail post, so that's no longer an issue.
As I recall, he dug his heels in with that one.
We picked that up.
We were
yeah.
really unhappy with the potential liability of.
Yeah.
I have and again, to Tim's comment that there were only a couple, you know, so I had more than a couple. And, I have a hunch you've picked up most of them. But I just, when you go over this with Larry, I would ask that you get this exhibit and go over this at the same time with Larry.
Do you
Happy
have a
to.
list?
Hey, can I ask a
This is a
question?
copy of it.
How does the board feel, Rob,
Why don't we give him a copy of it?
Rob hasn't seen the plans yet. You're just looking at them now. And why don't you have a chance to look over them, and like you said,
Well,
find the
I-
ones that you did pick out, the ones that,
I have looked them over,
oh, you have?
yeah.
And maybe we could just contact Larry directly with any concern. And I don't have a
You can do
problem
it
with
that way.
that.
You can do it that way if you want.
don't have
I
an
think
issue
it
with
would be
that.
helpful to make a couple of copies of this and give one to Larry
Yeah, I
and
mean,
one to
Yeah,
these guys.
What is this?
Can you do that, Howard?
Send it on.
What is this?
this was the exhibit that Howard has that, when I just raised those points, I had a bullet outline that I gave to Howard.
So
Okay.
it's part of the record at
Yes.
this point.
I mean, you can have this one.
Are we gonna have any concerns with, Howard being,
Suspect he'll address them
you
also.
being gone about, is Rob gonna be a voting member or not? And are we gonna have three?
Rob
now?
can't vote.
I can't vote.
And you're gonna be gone in
I can
how many, I just
participate.
heard last meeting, you're gonna be gone in so many meetings?
That remains to be seen.
Okay, okay, no, I'm just,
I am hopeful.
We're gonna clamp you down, buddy.
I just wanted to make sure we're getting right to the end, do we end up getting to the end that we don't have the four original members?
It's a
It's
very good
possible
question.
I'll be on the board for another.
You're gonna stay, right? Are you gonna get it on TV? You're staying until this project's done with me? All right, so,
Okay, so.
Larry, are you
I think-
comfortable with the level of review that you're doing
Well,
here?
personally, I wanna look
What do you
closely
recommend?
at the first 500, 600, 700 feet from East Main Street in. That's where most of my ground was. And I think the offer to sit down with Bill and Brian and look at the whole big picture, and the comments that you addressed, the tweaks you've made and things like that. If I have any issues with any of that, I'll bring them up. Otherwise, I'll focus on the major
I think that's,
items that
Yeah,
are.
that's
hydrology?
great, because we,
that sounds-
we hire you to look out for what we should be concerned about, so it's not a huge reason for us to be in the middle of that.
If that sounds agreeable, and this will
What
be
I'd-
part of that
Works for
discussion.
me,
What
work
I'd
for you,
like to
Tilly?
do is I'll
Yeah.
call you just to
Work
go
for you,
over
Bob?
it,
Yeah.
so you understand.
Rob,
Just
Tim?
wanna-
I'd just like to make one other short comment, since it's the first time we've met. This process of developing this land this way, came with the deal with the Conservation Commission where it was 20 acres and we took 5 or 6 and they took 5 or 6. The land that we got to develop was the land we wanted the conservation to have, but they took the parcel that we wanted to develop. And when I asked them why, they said because you wanted that parcel. Going back to one of your comments about this being pristine, we told them we didn't want this parcel. But we needed to develop this parcel, for town use because we're running out of fields. So I'm saying, this is the parcel that we want to develop, but it was not the ideal selection from the Park and Rec. It was selected by the conservation.
But when you say that you want it, were you pointing to me?
No, no,
Oh,
no.
okay.
No, no.
Oh, okay, because I.
I mean, you had made a comment that this is a 40-acre parcel that the Park and Rec has bought, and we're developing 5 acres of it. And the selection of this piece of that 40 acres was given to us, was determined by the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
That's all.
I think the main thing to remember is that while it looks as though we're developing about 2 or 3 acres here, there's a bigger picture. If you pull back, you'll know that there's about 40 acres that's actually being preserved in perpetuity in its natural state, as all part of the big package. And this is the entryway that leads up all the way to Martell, eventually someday, on the open space plan. So this is the gateway to the greenway.
To the herons.
Pardon?
To the herons.
To the herons. Any more concerns? Anybody in the audience? Not all at once.
Jim does raise a good point. We have filed a new notice of intent
You need to
based
do-
on the new plans and the new stormwater calculations, and we have our initial hearing on April 17th.
So you'll be able to open with a full board.
Yes, sir.
Is there, Tilly, anything else?
No, I just hope that, we have a full board. I'm just concerned about that.
Rob, good?
Yeah.
Totally. Larry, any more?
No, sir.
You're comfortable with where you are as far as what
And
we need to?
maybe well, the only thing is when are you going to hear this next? I'm pretty
So you know-
tightly scheduled for the next 2 weeks, but after that, sit down with you and start working on it.
I think it would behoove us to go for
I would
after
suggest
the
the second.
May, the second
meeting
meeting in May? What
Because
else do we
that-
have that night?
The 28th.
We don't have anything, but if you go
Okay.
to the 14th, then you run into a compression of time between town meeting, election, and getting an appointment made. to-
Second May, the 28th, 5/28? Is that the date? Am I
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
But you're talking about the second meeting in May?
Second meeting
second
in
meeting
May,
in May.
5/28.
right? Work?
Yeah.
Seems to work, right?
Yeah.
Good, somebody wanna make a motion to continue that date?
I move we continue this meeting
Yeah, I think so.
until
You-
the
you-
28th of May.
Jim, you
And-
understand why?
This meeting
that's fine.
being,
Okay, because it's close to election, and we gotta get an appointment to fill
Yeah.
Tim's spot, and to get that done after election,
You
meeting
have
with
to
the
have a special
selectmen.
meeting with the selectmen. I have to resign my seat, but it's a whole
Right,
rigmarole.
as long as we can keep moving forward.
Right.
Is there a second for the motion to continue to 5/28/2014?
Is that okay with you, Larry?
Seconded?
That's
by-
fine, and we'll start working toward the end of this month, so we can try to have something at that meeting that the board can sink their teeth into.
Great. All in favor to continue to, May 28th?
yeah, I
Yes.
mean, yeah,
Yay.
yeah.
I'll say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Motion carries, 4-0 with 1 abstention. And thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Very nice
Thanks, guys.
meeting you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Great job.
Thank you.
Where are we, Howard?
Member
What's
of
going
public
on?
report.
Was I in the men's room when you talked about the Board of Selectmen, the articles, report to the Board of Selectmen?
You came back.
Was I back?
Yeah.
I was still in the bathroom, probably. Mentally, I was still in the bathroom. 68 East Main, did we deal with that?
No.
Okay. Talking about,
Tight schedule until actually
thank you, Larry.
the end of next week.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. 68 East Main Street?
Wiry old dog.
The planning office received, a yellow slip to, sign off on, some signage And what is being proposed, as far as I can read, the handwriting, is, it says replace pre-existing blank signage with triad signage measuring approximately 8 feet by 2 feet. Total length of frontage is 25 feet. Also replace pre-existing blank signage on roadway with 2 smaller signs. I wanna take the second one first. As I understand it, they're gonna replace this single sign with 2 smaller signs to fit in the same area. So I'm understanding and seeing that as acceptable. What I don't understand is the way they wrote, replace pre-existing blank signage with a triad sign, which would mean, does it mean replacing this and keeping this? Or is it just to replace this? And the reason why I bring that up is because if they're just gonna replace this sign, and their leasehold is this area right here, they are in compliance of the 15%.
Okay.
But if they are gonna have Triad Driving Academy on both of these, this one's not in front of their leasehold, which doesn't say it needs to be, but the square footage of these two combined would be greater than the 15%.
Are these applicants here? They're not,
No, but they usually aren't, so,
they usually are not.
no.
Well,
Does Women's Healthcare there? Cause I thought it was a rehab place. That's in there. I didn't know there was.
There is a rehab place in there.
Yeah, Women's
Yeah, but-
Healthcare is there, it has a sign on it.
Nantucket,
Is
right?
that the rehab, Women's Healthcare?
I don't know, I didn't look into that, I was just looking at the sign permit.
well, I'd like to chop this into 2 pieces. The
didn't
first being this sign, the roadway sign.
Yeah.
I believe that's subject to a special permit under the ZBA, and they deal with that in detail.
How do you see it as?
That's as part of that's a special permit, that's in a special permit decision.
Yeah, but he's getting it to sign off, right?
The
Well,
building
I
inspector
think
gave
that
it to
might
me, so.
help answer some questions with respect to that. With respect to, the over the door, gee, Howard, I'll be honest with you, I've read it, I don't understand what they're asking to do. And until
neither do
somebody
I.
can explain to me what they wanna do, I'm not gonna vote in affirmative, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna
No,
vote
it
at all.
doesn't, it's very unclear.
Okay, so maybe we can find out what's going on. How does this work? If we don't decide, does the building inspector,
No, he
have
he
to
wants to,
issue?
he
Do you have
said,
a
why didn't
timeline?
you sign off on it? And I say, because we need more
we don't
information.
understand what's gonna happen?
Right.
Right.
Okay, well, see
I
if
mean,
we can contact him.
If they just kind of give us a picture of what they want, draw it in crayon for all I care.
Well, that's the point, is usually there's better shop drawings that are
Yeah.
provided and things like that, and I can ask for that to clarify, so.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
And do we know why they want to split this up?
No,
Do we care?
from a planning standpoint, no.
Well, one of them's going to say Triad Driving Academy, the other one will be blank.
No, the number underneath.
Isn't this before the ZBA for
He's been in there for lots of stuff.
a special permit or something?
Special permit, pre-existing non-conforming, he got some variances, but the variance was for.
So won't we be handling this under, site plan review?
It would, but the sign wouldn't be, we could address it at that time. Have we gotten any applications from them for site?
No.
No?
Why would we?
Well, I don't know, they gave him a
It-
lot
it-
of permits.
I was under the impression that the 68 East Main was before the ZBA for something.
It is, but
And I don't know how it
there hasn't
came
been
out.
any approval by them
Oh, I
to
don't
force
know.
them to come into site plan, so if,
They continued it, I think,
if,
right?
if
Oh,
the ZBA doesn't approve anything, we're not gonna see
It
a
doesn't
site
come
plan.
to us, right.
So
yeah.
that's why I say, why would we?
Well, find out about the signs, find out what they really wanna do.
Yeah, I'd like to check, check with them about that,
That would
cause
be
I
helpful.
wasn't sure, Pentucket Medical is down there?
That's news.
I know.
Provided in your meeting supplement is a letter we received, the town planner, the John Mativier as the inspector of buildings and the zoning enforcement officer regarding Noonan's and
This
Noonan's
was
dis-
received today?
No, it was received a while ago.
Oh.
And the reason why I'm bringing it to the board's attention now is because, both John and I agreed to pass this on to legal counsel. And Noonan's is making an argument that their proposed, cafe works with, the agricultural exemption under, zoning. And so,
That's weak.
the section 3.
Wow.
In the 25% rule. And you'll see in the email I provided that came back from town council, he doesn't agree with the 25% rule.
Have to give it a good read.
Give it a good read, because eventually they'll be before the planning board.
Presume
Did
there
they
would be
get-
anyway.
Did they get approval from the ZBA
They did.
for the eatery as well as the mini golf?
I don't recall what the decision is, but I believe the ZBA granted them approval on the use, but not the size of the cafe and other conditions like that.
So we're supposed to clean up that mess?
What this is a result of is the existing ice cream stand that's there now.
And boards?
Right.
I thought that closed.
Well, it's closed, but they're claiming that this is just that use being brought to a different place. So,
Is that ever a permitted use to begin with?
the ice cream was, but the food service was not. The hot dogs and
That was
hamburgers.
just kind of like an increasing
Creep.
use. Yeah.
Creep.
Use creep.
Use
I
creep.
believe with Creek, you go back to what was originally permitted, and that's what really counts. It doesn't matter where it crept to. does it?
Well, even if it was approved, it's an expansion of that, so.
It looks as though we've finished everything on the agenda. It's 9:15. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring up?
Do you have a member of public report?
That's what I'm bringing it up under.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't wanna get into discussing it tonight, but I would like to have people think about it, but in terms of, when Larry shows up and when Larry doesn't show up, and that, how that decision is made, and that it's to avoid with Larry having last minute notification, to avoid emails where some of us are saying, "Hey, come," some are not saying come. He gets confused, Howard doesn't know if he's coming, we all get confused, no one knows what's going on. Just to have a discussion about that later, to establish an agreed upon protocol with that. And, not to get into it tonight, but that was one agenda item for future discussion. The other was, the planning board minutes. These are the best planning board minutes I have ever seen. In one sense that they're like a transcript. And I tip my hat to you for the incredible work that you must do for that. With that being said, another point that I'd like to just talk about, is, at another time, but just to put on the table for now, is that, meeting minutes, that's an incredible amount of work that Wendy has to do. And I'm sure her time could be well used, helping Howard doing some other things. And typically, meeting minutes are, recording what's been done, not what's been said. And I think they could be a lot shorter, a lot more efficient, a lot more effective. And I'd like to have an opportunity, we could all talk about that another time. And then the other, the other part of it is that, in modifying meeting minutes, the proper, chain of command for that is where, if there's an amendment to meeting minutes, it has to come before the board and discussed, and there has to be, I'm not sure what the consensus of the vote has to be for that, but you have to have people all saying, yep, that is what took place. You can't just be sending in your own individual changes and then have them all of a sudden transcribed without the rest of the board.
Well, typos you can.
Corrections.
Typos you can.
Corrections.
Yeah, but,
But substantive verbiage changes, right,
correct.
should,
Correct.
Where
we are
meaning- where
used
meaning
to,
is-
that's how
No,
we're
no.
used
And,
to.
and Rob,
So-
I understand that, it's just the meeting minutes were getting so long, is starting to take up too much of the beginning of the meeting to go through all the reviews, so.
So we need to talk about that, cause I think there's, some better ways to do it.
Right.
So that's what those two parts were.
Well, I'd like to just touch on the first one, with respect to the technical review engineer, and his presence at a meeting. I look at it as though if any member, any individual member of the board would like to see Larry at a particular meeting, that should be enough of a trigger. I mean, we all recognize, and we're all smart enough, and we've gone through this process, none of us are new here, with the exception of you. We go through, hearing opens, applicant comes in, they bring plans, Larry reviews the plans, comes up with his comments, they're written. I don't need him to read them to me at a meeting, I can read them. Then there's a response, there's a change in the plans, next thing you know, that change in the plans is reviewed by Larry again. At a certain point, those two engineers, Larry and the engineer, figure out everything and they resolve all the technical details. And just like tonight with Jefferson Court, there's a couple of things that the board has to decide at the end. And at that point, that's when Larry comes in and I feel he's most valuable to have. He points out exactly, well, the two engineers really can't resolve it. You guys have to decide. And that's when Tilly makes a motion or Tim makes a motion and we just all say yay or nay and we decide. That's when I find Larry very valuable.
Yeah, on small things like this, but when this whistle, whatever the new name of Whistle Stop's gonna be, Larry's gotta be there frequently.
If,
'Cause there's a lot of
again,
new
I guess-
how does it sound if anybody wants Larry there? Send an email to Howard and he'll invite him.
Well,
Does that work?
I think it should be a consensus of the board.
I think it should be the consensus of the board. I don't think it should ever anything should ever just be one person, but, I think I'm more interested in the process than as much, so that Larry is notified with enough time so that he knows, so that Howard knows, so that the scheduling of that decision is done appropriately
Mhm.
versus last minute kind of changes.
Well, Larry would be in for public hearings, for the most part, and usually we've got the public hearing set 2 weeks in advance,
Well,
so.
I was concerned, it's like, football where, Monday morning quarterback, I guess, that East Main Street was dragged and dragged and dragged, and I think Larry wasn't there one time at our hearing about it, and I think it would have been maybe quicker if
I don't
they
know.
were face to face and, and where you were saying you could read and, you understand, well, I'm not that familiar.
Absolutely, and that's why I say one person, any one person feels as though they've read Larry's comments and they
Yeah.
just don't get them,
Yeah.
that they need a little bit more, something's not clear.
Yeah.
That's why I look at, I know you understand the idea that a consensus should be the deciding factor of whether Larry does or does not show, but any one member that wants Larry's input, I feel should have the ability to get it.
Well,
And there's
I'd
a,
like
me-
to
and
say
there's, a-
that.
and there's a mechanism for that.
I'll ask the board right now, do you want him at the next meeting? Because it's gonna be the first public hearing on the OSRD concept plan for the Faraji property.
I personally don't feel it's necessary in the first opening of the hearing.
I think
I don't
it-
see anything technical that,
I think there's gonna be a lot of serious issues with that parcel.
well, I'm not saying that there won't need a lot of technical review
But is
after that.
that needed for the first meeting?
For the first meeting, I don't feel.
I mean, the real
The first
issue
meeting,
is-
you haven't even set up an M account to pay him to review it, and
I mean, you haven't even
So-
begun to look at the plan to figure out what the yield plan is, I mean,
Have they submitted anything to Larry yet?
well, they submitted to the planning office, and I forwarded on the copy, but I can't give him the go-ahead to start review, and when last I know
Well,
he's gonna get
there's no
paid.
point in having him here until he's seen the plans. I mean,
That is correct.
why have him
That's
here?
true.
when
He can't see the plans till he knows he's gonna get paid for his review, and
Right.
the M account's usually established at the first meeting.
Right.
We wouldn't want Larry to be here charging the applicant before we have an M account.
Well, we don't wanna be wasting Larry's time or the applicant's money on having Larry here.
I think that's really,
There's
that's
not-
really what we're talking about, is that they're precious resources that we wanna spend wisely.
I mean, with the East Main Street Park and Rec thing, it would have been helpful to have Larry here, because Larry kept sending us second and third iterations and saying the same thing each time. And we were just sort of stuck in the middle between Lou saying, well, it'll all work out in fluff, don't worry about it, we'll grade it, it'll work, you know? And
Right.
Larry saying, well, I don't see it, and Rob, when he came to the meeting, I don't see it either. And, you know, it would have been nice to have Larry here then, because Larry could explain to us who's fluffing who.
At least so we would understand it.
I think it, you know, you'd almost have a policy in place for when Larry shows up. You know, and the
Certainly after
policy
the
is,
plans have been reviewed.
you know, first meetings, first introductions, no. But then when the plans are submitted and they're looking for his review, thereafter he comes to public hearings.
And to add to that is, I can ask the board at the end of the meeting if they're gonna request him to be at the next, because the 2-week timeline isn't enough to establish a new public hearing.
Correct.
So we'll have the public hearings known of, right now, we know it's gonna be on the 23rd, so.
Yeah.
And I think if we're gonna request Larry to be there, he needs to be afforded that amount of time to schedule himself appropriately, cause he's got other communities that he reports to, so.
I know it, poor Larry, in that email he sent.
What,
Am I or am I?
Well, that's the pilot in him speaking. Want me to take off or sit here longer?
Oh,
So-
right.
I mean, we don't wanna waste anybody's time or any applicant's money.
Yeah.
We'll work it out. Anything else? I'll accept the motion to
I
adjourn.
move we adjourn.
Ah,
It's not 10:30 yet.
well, I'll move to adjourn. Never will be again.
No, I take that back, we want you to stay for that.
Is there a second to that, Tilly?
Second.
Seconded by Tilly. All in favor? All
No.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Meeting is adjourned at 9:26.
That's definitely, you
PM.
can vote
Thank
on
you.
that, definitely.